Welcome to the Fire from Two Windows podcast, where we take a deep dive on different aspects of the fire service. My name is Matt Humnicki, and I am joined with my co-host Lou Cominelli. We want to express that these are our own opinions, built by experiences and education while tailoring our own craft. These are not the opinions or directions from our various employers. We are out here on our own to spur conversation and help level up the playing field for all.
Yeah, it started with a couple posts on the Instagram about fitness because you wanted to talk about it because we got some other stuff that we want to do some research on before we dive into that. But we figured, working out, part of the job, being in shape for the job is very important. Not only for the job but just for the longevity, staying in the job, and after you get out. So we thought it was a good, easy topic to talk about. What were you thinking when you brought up fitness or working out or exercising? Because I have my own thoughts. You have your thoughts. We kind of go back and forth. We send each other workouts, what we've done, or how hard we kicked ourselves in the butt that day with our workout. And you and I have a little bit different take on how we work out.
Yeah, a little bit. So I picked up this firefighter functional fitness book a couple years ago. I think actually you recommended it to me by Dan Kerrigan and Jim Moss. I read through there. It kind of gave me a little bit of motivation and get back into the fitness realm. I was doing at the time I was running, and that was it. Nothing else. I needed to increase my strength, especially since, point of pride in our firehouse, we throw a lot of ladders. We really get after it on the fire ground just to see what we can do single person and then build upon team-based stuff. There's a lot of talk out there about firefighters being athletes. And somebody recently brought that up, and I'm not sure where my opinions lie. We're not playing for the Yankees. We're also not playing for an NFL team, nothing of that nature. So where do we really lie, and what is our responsibilities to ourselves and the people we work with? In other words, what does fitness mean to us, and how does that drive our day-to-day? So that's that little just kind of got this kicking off.
I mean, I would say, I've heard the term occupational athletes thrown out there, kind of like that. But you're right. We're not a firefighting is not a professional sport, even though you are a professional. And that goes if you're a volunteer or a paid fireman, you should be professional at what you do. And that means you need to be fit to do the job. And one of the things, and this is no knock on the volunteer fire service because they need all the help they can get. But one of the things that you get on the career side is through the fire academy, you have that fitness aspect of it in the morning or afternoon, whenever they decide to hold their physical fitness portion of the day. There's some guy, there's people out there that, are, rah military and rah, they want to be, Navy SEALs and stuff like that. I'm not going to lie. I listen to Jocko Willink, I listen to guys like Tim Kennedy. My wife says I got a man crush on him, which I probably do. But, the one thing that's different between, you can even throw police officers in there. But the one thing that's different between firemen and the military and firemen and pro athletes is that, like, take the NFL. They know their schedule almost 9 months ahead of time. They know exactly what day they're going to play 9 months ahead of when they actually got to go and perform on the field. The Buffalo Bills release their schedule sometime in January. They know they got this many primetime games, this many 1 o'clock games, this many, 4:30 games. So they have that level of preparedness for when they're going to perform. Military doesn't do operations without significant planning. You listen to, Navy SEALs talk about, I'm just saying Navy SEALs. You listen to Navy SEALs or even, any special forces or any type of military, even just general infantry. They do a workup before they go deploy and go to their battle, to their area of operations. So that, their workup could be 6 months, it could be 7 months. They have a significant ramp up time before they actually have to go out and perform their duty that they have to perform. firemen and police and first responders in general, there's no warning. That 911 call happens 8 in the morning, 5 at night, 2:30 in the morning, 4:45 in the morning. It doesn't matter. Whenever someone dials 911 and says they need help, that's when we go. And it could be a benign, CO detector battery just chirping, needs to get changed, or it could be, the fire from the second floor with people trapped. It could be anything. It could be an MV8 people trapped. That's where I think the fitness level in firefighting has to be taken a step notch above what people generally think it needs to be, because studies have shown, when your house alerting system goes off or the pager goes off and you're sitting at home in a home response, your pulse skyrockets. You get that immediate adrenaline dump and it gets you going for that short period of time. But then after the adrenaline wears off, you need to have that reserve energy to perform. And if you're not physically fit to do that, what are you going to do? How are you going to perform?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, once they become a little bit more self-conscious of their physical fitness in the fire service, they start to wax and wane between, do I need endurance or do I need strength? You got to kind of find that sweet middle ground, or whatever level is appropriate for your actions. And that doesn't mean truck, rescue, engine type of things. It's just, for example, if I get up in the morning, as each year ticks on, I'm starting to worry about joints and stupid little things. But if I get out of bed in the morning and I feel that just a stiffness in my knee, or shoulder because I slept funny, my brain just it goes straight to, oh God, I can't throw a ladder today. It's my day off. That's what I'm thinking of. I need to stretch that out, work on upper body a little bit more, specifically my shoulders. It's just like, this is what spins in my head, right? But overall, if you have the strongest shoulders in the world, you have the strongest legs, right? We can lift, we can explode really, really quickly. One rep. How many reps can we go for? We've all felt that, where maybe it doesn't catch up with us right away on the fire ground, but when we go to rehab or we go to swap out bottles, all of a sudden it catches up. You got a second to breathe. It starts catching up with you because your heart is racing. For most of us, our hearts are racing. It's coming back down. We just ran through a bottle. Now you're starting to feel the fatigue kick in. The adrenaline might be slowing down a little bit. So now we're realizing we got to worry about the endurance as well. How long can we go in that marathon? It's not a straight race, but it's also not just straight, hey, great, you're going to lift 400 pounds once and then you're done with the job.
Right. And you need to have a good balance of endurance, power, strength, flexibility, which I am not flexible at all. But, you need that power to get that 35-foot ladder up. You need strength to pull, a potential victim down a hallway. And then you need endurance to last the 20, 25 minutes on your bottle, go get another bottle, and then go back in and get back on back into the fight. So there needs to be a good balance between, the strength, power, and endurance and flexibility to perform our job. Where you look at professional athletes, NFL linemen, they might not need as much strength as they do power, because, the average NFL play lasts only a couple seconds. So they hit the line. They need to make that block. That's where the power comes in, maybe a little bit of strength, but then they get a quick recovery. The 40-second play clock, they get a quick 40-second rest. And then depending on what kind of play they call, if they call pass protection, it's a little bit different blocking scheme than a run protection. Same, you look at baseball. Baseball needs a lot of power, not much endurance. And, some of the guys that run the bases, they need speed. Soccer, completely different. Soccer is a completely different sport. It's almost all endurance. You're just running the entire time. That's why, and there's no goal scored. That's why I like mixing up my workouts. When I feel like I work out at work, it's more towards a speed power workout because I feel like I can get a speed and power workout in a short period of time without interruptions from a fire call. And I'm doing a little bit more at home. When I'm at home and I go to the gym, I have a little bit more time, so I can concentrate on my strength lifts, which are slow and controlled. You know, you do your normal, chest and tri day, back and bi day, and then, leg day. I still work in, like today I call it my cleans day, which is a straight power workout. It's just a variation of power cleans. And that's just a power move right there. Can it be an endurance move? Absolutely. You lower the weight and you do more reps and you don't have as much rest time. But if you have mid weights and you're doing fast reps and then a mid rep, however much time I worked on that set. So let's say a set took me 45 seconds. I'll try to rest only between, and this is on my cleans days when I'm doing, I'm concentrating on power and, a little bit of endurance. I'll try to keep my rest work cycle a 1-to-1. So if my lift set took 45 seconds, I won't rest more than a minute. I won't give my body a chance to recover. But if I'm doing a normal strength training session, dumbbell presses, flies, so on and so forth, I'll extend my rest period a little bit more to give my muscles a little bit more chance to recover so I can lift heavier. At work, it's completely different. At work, I don't want to spend all day in the gym. So I try to limit my workouts at work to 30, 45 minutes. Sundays during football season, I'll admit, I need to decompress after Bills games. So that's usually when I throw in cardio and I get on the stair mill for an hour and listen to post game and listen to people, bitch and complain about, what the Bills did or did not do, or they're celebrating a win. But I get on the treadmill and I either run for an hour or I get on the step mill and climb for an hour. I feel that's a good way to decompress, but it's also a good cardio workout so that during a fall, I feel like my cardio is a little bit better just because what I do on Sundays. My biggest thing with fitness in the fire service is the guys that are not doing it. It's like, why aren't you doing it? It's a disservice to not only you, it's a disservice to the public you serve, and it's a giant disservice to your family if you have to go home to one.
I saw a number that floated out there. I've seen two different numbers, so it kind of gives a range from two different sources, and I can't cite those at the moment. I apologize, but one of them said that when you step off the rig with all your gear, all right, so you arrive on scene, you have all your gear on, you're automatically starting at 50 to 75% of your max capacity, whatever that may be. Now, I realize that is in a super broad term. What is max capacity? Are we talking your running endurance type of thing? How long can your heart pump at high value versus a quick lift, heavy lift? But regardless, what they're trying to identify and put in people's minds is that you're not working at 100%. It's impossible. Okay. Now, there's a theory that if you move your body in your off days or while you're not on a job in the moment, with heavier weight. So take, for example, a training vest. If you had, say, a 50-pound vest and you're constantly getting used to that, you're getting used to wearing that 50-pound vest all day. When you go to a job, when you go to work, you're inclined to be in that higher range, closer to 75. You're still not getting to 100. But let's say you could magically wave it, or afford, you could put a 100-pound vest on. Now we're somewhere into the realm of what our gear weighs with all of our kit on, and you're getting used to it. Your body's getting used to that. You should be able to work closer to 100% capacity, right? There's that theory as well. Both of these are unrealistic. You can't just wear a vest all day long and go about your business. It's not like you just walk into the bank and do your transactions or go to the mall. I mean, I suppose you can, but you're gonna get some funny looks and possibly some
a lot of strange
police
looks
police interventions or something. But the point stands is that's the point of working out. You need to get your body used to working at these other extremes. We do live fire training for that reason. We're practicing for live fire so that we're not so overly excited during an actual fire. We can get close to it, but we can't hit exactly the same as the real deal.
Yeah, you and I both utilize the weighted vest a lot.
Yeah.
That's one thing you and I do a lot in common is work out with a weighted vest. If I mow the lawn, I have a push lawnmower. My yard probably would be a lot easier if I had a rider, but I don't. And the only reason I don't have one is because I use that as part of my workout. I put the weighted vest on. I look like a fool in my neighborhood, but I don't care. Put my headphones on and I mow the lawn. It takes me about 50 minutes. I get 50 minutes of cardio with a weighted vest, and it burnt. I've tracked it. I've sent you the trackings, and you make fun of me how I mow my lawn, but
it's all over the place. There's no straight lines according to your tracker.
According to the GPS. But it's usually, anywhere from 300 to 400 calories, depending on how fast I'm moving, how hard I'm pushing myself. Just mowing the lawn with a weighted vest on. When you step off the rig at max capacity because you have all your gear on, the weighted vest is a good supplement. The problem is that you don't have that encapsulation. Our gear is meant to shield us from the heat, but at the same time, it's going to retain the heat that we're putting off. And especially with the moisture barrier that we have, if your body sweats like I do, all that moisture staying inside. So a lot of times when we do live fire and I know we're doing training, I'll wear a long sleeve shirt just to take up some of that sweat that I have. And if we're doing, at the academy, live fire days at the fire academy, and I'm the ignition officer or whatever task I was assigned that day, I'll have 3 or 4 different long sleeve shirts, and I'll change them out every hour just to keep the moisture off of me, just so I can keep going and stay cool. The one thing that, you see it on a lot of the Instagram, since they're good guys. They do a lot of good stuff. They put a lot of good content out there. But I saw a post the other day about training in your gear, and the IFF just came out with that study a couple, months ago about the PFAS in the gear. Mm-hmm. So we already have cancer-causing stuff in our gear that we know about. We're going into a cancer-causing environment with the carcinogens and smoke. So no matter what, we're surrounded by carcinogens. Why? And I get what they're trying to do, like what you said. You're trying to match the capacity that we have to work under with all our gear on. But when I saw this post that says, why would you wear your gear if you know they're cancer-causing agents in our gear, and you're going to work out in it and be exposed to it even more?
I feel like there's a joke in there that, like, if you continue to smoke, you're building up immunity to cancer type of thing, but I don't know how to work that in. But maybe there's a theory out there that somebody's trying to play.
Right, but what's better? Being physically fit in the gear that we work in, so you're able to do the job, which is a good thing, or wear the gear that we have that's going to cause us cancer and work out in it and sweat and get those PFAS on our skin and everything else. I mean, yeah, you're going to shower and decon after, but I mean, I don't know which side to be on in that point. To me, I go back to my wrestling days, and if I want to, sweat a little bit more, I just buy the plastic jumpsuit and put the weighted vest underneath there.
Yeah, garbage bag.
It's not going to mimic the. Yeah, that was the cheap way of doing it. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't know which is better, to work out for the capacity that you have to work under, or make yourself around those carcinogens more than you have to be. Is there a better way of doing it? The weighted vest is good, but it doesn't, encapsulate you. So is there something else we can do to mimic the encapsulation without putting our gear on? I don't know. That might be $1 million idea right there.
Yeah,
for firemen.
Getting close to it is just keep putting stuff on. Keep adding things on. There's an account that's out there of a New York City fireman who does a lot with a weighted vest in stairwells. That's like his warm up. The guy's a beast. His warm up is to throw his weighted vest on, and then he just keeps packing on as much Velcro weights as he can, and he's got 2 weight in each hand, and he keeps increasing. And he just goes up and down stairs. The guy's an animal, but that's how he gets around it. But there's other things out there like early 90s. I remember seeing them at least in the 90s. I know my parents had a set, the ankle weights.
I was just going to bring up the ankle weights. I want to get them for a firehouse.
I had a basketball coach that he recommended, hey, while you're in class, this was back in middle school, high school, put the weights on your ankles. You're wearing pants all day anyways. Nobody's going to see it. And that'll help you with your jump. And then that kind of, kids on the team kind of get made fun of it. Then it became a popular thing. And it was kind of wild to watching everybody buy these stupid weights. Now they sit around the houses not getting used, but okay, that encapsulates the legs, the bottom of the legs. You already got the weight on top of the legs because it's on your shoulder from the vest, but you're definitely pinning your shoulders. You can do farmer's carries at the same time. Just keep changing it up. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I've learned over the years of experience with this, still trying to dial in what I want to do and what I want to achieve, is that you can't just have one routine and stick with that routine over and over again. You have to keep your muscles guessing, I think is the phrase that's out there. Keep adding weight.
Yeah, that whole
removing weight
guessing,
and switching it.
That whole guessing, keeping your muscles guessing, that became pretty popular, like 10, 15 years ago. That's when like CrossFit came into real.
Yeah.
That's when CrossFit kind of exploded because of the way they work out. I'm not saying CrossFit's a bad thing. I mean, those people are jacked, but I always laughed when you look at there's that one, it was like a reel on Instagram or something. I sent it to you. There was the CrossFit says, functional fitness. And then they show these CrossFitters that are ripped out of their minds. And one of their tasks was to drive a picket into the ground with a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
And none of these CrossFitters knew how to swing a sledgehammer to drive a picket. Could they swing a sledgehammer to hit a tire? Yeah, of course they can. But you put a 1.5 inch diameter picket in the ground and they got to drive it in so many inches or a foot or so. And they're tapping it like a 3-year-old's tapping in the wood blocks on their toy. And it looks like they're trying to put the round block into the square hole.
Hands all choked up on the handle too.
Yeah, hands all the way up. Yeah. They're not taking full swings. They're just kind of tapping it in there.
So I took this quick snapshot from, I think it was a live fire instructor course they took a while back, and they were talking about what the body's doing inside your encapsulated suit. All right, so we have fire on the outside, we have our suit, and I think it came out of the discovery that the clothes underneath your PPE, they're saying it matters on what you have. And there's been a couple cases out there where people have worn essentially straight polys and the poly has melted, but the PPE has not because of what's happening there. And that goes to radiation and all this other stuff. But I'm not getting into that. But as far as your body reacting through repetitive rounds or not, you have cardiac strain and thermal strain going on. So during that time frame, your heart rate goes up. We all know that. Your BP goes up, right? Your core temperature goes up. So right there, those three things are pretty brutal. We've all felt it. Usually you can feel it in your mask seal. So you start sweating, you feel your seal feels like it's loosening up, or you might have a little trickle, right? So we crank down on our mask seal just to get it going. But now we have a headache and we think it's just from cranking down too tight on our mask. But really a big part of that is also our blood pressure is going up and we're starting to feel that throb a little bit. Plus the mask is tight. All right, core temperature is going up. Your stroke volume is going down. Your plasma volume is going down. Okay, these are very clinical terms, but we're dehydrating like crazy, right? We've all gone, even if we go out back, we throw a few ladders, we throw our PPE on, we go out back, throw a few ladders, and we come back inside. The inside of your PPE, we've all know this feeling because we can all smell this feeling, right, is completely soaked. Your uniform, from neck all the way down to your socks, is completely soaked. You didn't throw any water out there. It's just that's how much is happening, how much change is happening inside your body that you instantly sweat profusely. It's a ton, right? So you got to get to that round. When you're doing your regular workouts, all right, so typically when you're doing just your weights, right? You said controlled weights, low reps, high weight. You might start to break a sweat, pits, groin, that type of thing. But I don't know a lot of people that all of a sudden they're completely drenched from neck to toes because they, did 225 for 10 or something like that on the bench. If you do, maybe we gotta reevaluate and go back to the doctor, which we'll talk about that in a minute too. But when you get into more of the endurance stuff, our heart rate is elevating. That's a big drive too. When our heart reaches that one zone, and for each of us, it's different based off of time and what you're working heart rate should be or can get to, that's when you're going to start to sweat, right? Core temperature goes up. Well, now our body's saying, hey, I need to sweat because I need to cool down. That's our body's AC unit, right? So we got a lot of things competing there. We got to try and trick all these systems. This is the goal inside of working out, is to trick all, at least for firefighters. I'm sure other disciplines have something similar. We have to trick all of our little systems into thinking we're on a job, right? By doing all these different things. We've had anything from increasing temperature in the room, right? We've done that with the, especially lately with the ice blocks. Now we're told no more ice blocks. I mean, we're definitely not using ice blocks. You know, you mentioned shirts. I've purposely worn long sleeve shirts, even on hot days, just to trick systems, because I know I'm going into a training environment, not a life or death environment. Running, how about doing something like that? We run on a 90-degree day at noon. That's a great way to get your body to start working at a different level of efficiency. It sucks. One, I hate running. I absolutely hate running. But two, if I do it more and more, the more often I do it, the more use my body's getting out of that, right? I'm conditioning not just my legs or my muscles or just my endurance. I'm also conditioning for that temperature. You start sweating differently. All right. It's not going to take so much heat or such at, let's say, X heart rate anymore. It's going to be X plus some now to start sweating, because your body's like, yeah, this ain't nothing. Now, I'm not saying that makes you fireproof, quote unquote, but it does help. And you have to keep switching up these little systems that you're tricking. I don't know. What do you think?
So you hit a couple points there with the hydration. One thing I started doing it probably, I don't know, maybe this year was, I think it might have been a New Year's resolution, was to drink. First thing I do in the morning is to drink 20 ounces of water, because you wake up dehydrated just from your the natural, what you do at sleep. You secrete water, you sweat. You could have the room as cold as you want. You're still losing water. You get up, you take that first piss of the day, and you can tell you're dehydrated because it's usually not clear. And if it's clear, you're probably drinking water in the middle of the night, like most women do. They have that water cup next to them, and they just drink
Or
water
seven.
all night. Yeah, or seven, but they also get up and pee 13 times in the middle of the night. So the one thing I started doing is drinking 20. Try to drink 20 ounces of water first thing I wake up. But the problem is, what do you do at the firehouse when you get there? What's the first thing you grab?
Coffee, baby.
Cup of coffee.
It's got
Now,
water in it.
right. And this goes to one of the things that you hit on, was training how we out, in the fire service, you train how you play type of thing. When I work out, probably 90% of the time I'm working out, there's a cup of coffee in the gym with me, and I'm dehydrating myself, but I'm not saying I'm, the most fittest fireman there is. I'm definitely not the most fittest fireman there is. The other thing you hit on was working out with like long sleeves and sweatshirts. I would say 75% of the time, which is usually when if my laundry's done at the firehouse, I work out with a sweatshirt on. It's just the way it is. And just because I've always liked working out in the heat. And I think that stems from the wrestling room, because the wrestling room, wrestling room was pretty small. You'd have 60 sweaty, 14 to 18-year-olds in there working hard for 2.5 hours. I think one time the coach brought in a thermometer. I think the wrestling room got up to like 100 and over 100 degrees. And that's without even the heat being on in the middle of the winter.
Jesus.
Just, yeah. And that's where I started liking working out in the heat. And that translated in the firehouse gym. So try to work out in the heat. I also think it was a former chief. I want to say John Mittendorf, but I could be wrong. Saying when he was getting ready for the fire service, or when he was working out for the fire service, he would work out in the sauna. But the problem is this former chief was trying to say, and I don't think it was John Mittendorf. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But what he was saying is, unless you are in that temperature for the majority of the time, your body will never get used to it. So that's one thing firemen don't. It's not in our. It's not in our bank. It's not a positive for us that we can't ever mimic the temperatures that we're gonna even feel when we put the gear on. I tell the guys at the firehouse, especially the probies, you are going to be the most tired after pin jobs, working a tool, because pin jobs, for whatever reason, happen on the sunniest days. You're on the road, which is already hot because of the blacktop, and you're not protected because of the sun's beating down on you. We have black gear, which, I like the black gear, but so you're already cooking from the heat coming off the road, the heat coming from the sun, and then your body's working to cut this car apart. The other job that on the fire ground that seems to take a toll is vertical ventilation. Starting from throwing a ladder, climbing a ladder, getting up on the roof. And I don't know if it's the physical task of all that or just the physiological aspect of your 20, 30 feet in the air on a roof with, no fall protection, because you're cutting a roof and we don't have fall protection. So I don't know if that your mind plays tricks on you, which raises your heart rate, which raises your blood pressure, then everything else happens. It might be a good study for someone that's a lot smarter than us to conduct. But trying to mimic those things is going to always be tough for firemen to do. We can't, it's just tough to do. I mean, I don't know what else we can do besides pile on the clothes and pile on the weights and work out like that. But sometimes that's not even feasible for us to do. I mean, if you're at the firehouse gym and you have, the ankle weights on, 50-pound vest, sweatpants, sweatshirt, and everything else on, and a job comes in, now you got to strip all those off and get on the rig. I've done it with a 50-pound vest, and I'm running out and trying to get this vest off with my headphones on, and things are going flying everywhere. It's not the best, but you do what you got to do. One thing I will say, and you mentioned the ankle weights as well. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around.
That's okay.
So I did a 911 stair climb at FDIC in 2018. And I thought I trained for it. I was on the stair mill with the vest. And one thing that I missed training was putting ankle weights on. The weight of the air pack and the weight of your coat, that didn't bother. I mean, your shoulders kind of burn from the air pack, but the weight of your boots and the weight of your bunker pants, stepping up those steps for it's like 3,800 steps, I think 110 floors are, somewhere in that realm. The weight of your boots and the weight of your vest, that's what killed me. I mean, I completed it, but my legs were burning. And I said to myself, when I got done with that, if I ever had to do this one again, the one in FDIC is legit. That's a long climb. I would train with ankle weights over the weighted vest any day of the week, just for that evolution.
It's kind of a different feature of how you're lifting too. When you have your vest on, the weight's over the muscles doing the work, right? So it's kind of you're pushing up vertically and forward, but you're lifting up and pushing forward versus having something below the working muscles. So you're pulling them up and dragging them forward. Even though those are typically, usually we run the 50-pound vests, and what are ankle weights a piece? 10 pounds maybe on each leg?
Yeah.
Are they even that much?
Like that.
It still makes a difference. And how your body responds to these things, but you're exactly right. And these are those little things that kind of started mentioning is that over time, we kind of have an idea of what it means to work out in general, especially in high school. You did wrestling. I did basketball, lacrosse. That's about it in high school. Working out in a weight room was not on my radar. Didn't come till much later, right? But my very first experience with that was, well, I just got to lift some weights. I had no direction. I had nothing that kind of drove me on how I was supposed to be lifting or moving. And then each year and each experience, whether it's a different job, especially this job, you start to take in a little bit of nuances that change up your workout for you, and that's what led us to how you and I both work out slightly differently, today, but also the fact that we're both still driven for the same, our motivations are the same though, and I kind of wanted to
Yeah,
touch base on that. So
yeah. I mean, the same thing in high school. I wrestled and played baseball. The weight room was like non-existent for the baseball team. We never went in there because one, we're outside, and if we went in the weight room, it was because it was too cold to play ball. Because upstate New York, it's you get baseball starts April 1st for high school, and most of April it's either raining or snowing or both. So if we were inside, or we were in the gym doing whatever, but the weight room was more optional, less on the less optional. You didn't have to do it. It wasn't even the coaches were what they were for my high school baseball team. Wrestling, because of the nature of wrestling and how fast paced the season was, we really didn't get in the weight room as much as I thought we should have. Is how much, or thought we, it wasn't harped on to get in the weight room as much. We went in the weight room, but it wasn't directed. We didn't have any really guidance because 2.5 hours, first half hour is stretching and warming up. And then it was, your drill, live wrestling. And then it was in the wrestling room, calisthenics conditioning, which was wrestling conditioning in the weight room is probably the toughest workouts anyone can ever do at that age. And probably even collegiate as well. But when I got on the job, I got out of the academy. Everybody's probably their fittest they're going to be out of the academy. And I like to think I'm more fit now because I had a light bulb go off in my head. The light bulb went off when I got into a staff position sitting behind a desk for 2 years. And I was like, I'm not going on calls anymore. I was, but I'm not getting on the rig. I'm not doing the tasks of a fireman. And you shouldn't use the job to stay fit. You should be fit to do the job. But when I got in that staff position,
right there. You should get a T-shirt.
It's not mine. It's not mine. It's I think it was on that. Yeah, that quote came from. Did the union ever show you when you got hired? Did the union ever show you that propaganda video?
I got none of those days. I was hired on a Thursday in the academy Saturday morning.
There's this union propaganda video. It's a good video, but it's about being physically fit. And the guy says that quote, and it kind of stuck with me. But when I got in that staff position, I'm sitting behind a desk, and who I was working with. We were like nicest guy ever. We actually became pretty professional, and working well with each other towards the end of our staff position time. But in the beginning, it was, 3:00. I had to get out of the office, and there wasn't enough coffee in the world in the firehouse to drink. So luckily the gym was the next door down. So childish of me, I would go in the gym and blast the music as loud as possible.
Yeah, I remember these days.
Half the reason was to piss him off, but I was in the gym for an hour, and it was a decompression from working in that office, doing whatever I had to do as a staff officer. And that's when I started enjoying and starting to love working out. And it started with just kettlebells. I was just doing straight kettlebells. But then I started looking into it like what you brought into. All right, kettlebells are good, but what can I do for the job to be functional? What sort of lifts are there with the limited equipment we had? And this is only 6 years ago, before our department invested a lot of money into our gyms and fitness equipment and our peer fitness trainers. What movements can I do that mimics movements on the fire ground? And I started gearing my lifts towards that. And one of the biggest lifts and I enjoy. It's a love-hate relationship, and I always send you the workout after I get done because they're always, you could do, I call it clean days. It's just, you start off with a barbell cleans, then you move to a landmine cleans, and then there's dumbbell snatches. It's just a variation of snatches and cleans, mostly cleans. But I felt like the clean movement is one of the best movements for the fire ground. Throwing a ladder, it's a clean, especially if you're throwing a ladder, a single fireman raise when you butt the ladder up against a building. It's a deadlift up to a clean. You got to get a victim to the window. You drag the victim to the window, feet in there. You want to take them out head first. You sit them up. You get your hands underneath through their armpits. That's a clean to the window. These big movements, these like that power clean movement is probably my personal opinion is if you were going to pick one exercise, one movement to do, that would be the exercise to do to be functionally fit on the fire ground. Now there's other movements out there that you have to do that you can mimic on the fire ground. Throwing ladders, a lot of shoulders, so you should be doing shoulder presses. Curls, your arms look, I mean, if you want big arms, you do tri extensions because that's what makes your arms big. But if you know, I don't know what you would really need tries and gigantic pythons, as Hulk Hogan would say, on the fire ground for. I mean, you need strong arms. But what you need more in your arms is grip strength. So where do you get grip strength from? Farmer's carries, forearm exercise. Not only, gripping a tennis ball or whatever, those old, the metal, they look like the barbell stoppers for the weights. Clips. But they have the clips.
I got one in my car door.
The old red handle, you got them with the Hulk Hogan weightlifting set. Those are great for your forearms, but then you also need to have the extension muscles in there too. And there's a product out there that looks like an elastic band. You put it around your fingers and you stretch your,
it stretches out wide.
There's another exercise that I used to do. I haven't done it in a while, but I would hang my hands over a bench and then just with my fingertips, take, the sledgehammer that we have in our gym. And I would move the sledgehammer up with just my fingertips and then move it down controlledly. And that would work out my grip strength as well. Farmer's carries are excellent for grip strength. You hold on to a 60-pound dumbbell or a 60-pound kettlebell for a minute. I was talking to one of our friends who works at another department, and I was telling him he's a big lifter. And he can lift a lot of weight. And I was saying I was having trouble doing deadlifts. I was having trouble with the weight, but I was having trouble with holding the weight with my grip strength. And you and I, no straps, no gloves.
No gloves.
But what I was saying, I can lift however much weight on a trap bar because that it's like a cheat code for your grip strength because of the way your grip is. But if you do a dumbbell or a barbell deadlift, neutral grip, hook grip, it doesn't matter. You still need a lot of grip strength to pull that weight. And if you don't have the grip strength, you can't pull as much weight as you should be able to. And I was asking him, how do I increase my grip strength? He says, go to a pull-up bar and just do dead hangs. Just hang on the bar for as long as you can. So that's another movement or exercise that I've worked into. If I do a set of pull-ups, after I'm done with my set of pull-ups, I'll hang until my hands give out. I stopped doing them. I was trying to work myself up to a 20-second hang on one arm. I think I got to, 35 seconds on both arms, but that was after doing sets of pull-ups. I haven't really done dead hangs in a while. I should probably work that in. But what are you doing for functional? I mean, I'm big into the cleans, I would say big movements for the job. When I say big movements, they're like, power cleans, deadlifts, squats, stuff like that.
So I kind of got into this when I originally started getting into working out with, weights, just lifting in general. It was bench press. I was not doing deadlift, nothing like that, but it was curl, back, by, try, like you broke it up. The engineer side of my brain started kicking in saying, hey, there's a little asymmetry going on, and I don't like asymmetry all that much. In other words, things can grow at a different ratio. So if you love doing buys, great, your tries are not getting to work out, and then you have like this weird look. And I was always concerned with that. Not that that was happening, but it's just one of those things that stuck out, and I never understood why people only focused on chest, but they might skip a back day. And I thought you'd have to be exactly the same if you have, okay, let's say 5x5s for a bench, then you have to do 5x5 something heavy with like a pole, against your back, keeping these movements where they're the complete opposite. So they're complement each other. Then when I started reading or started seeing the crossfitting stuff out there, I'm like, all right, that seems cool because you got the endurance side of it, but it's not a lot of, yeah, they can lift a lot of weight, but it's not super heavy weight, like Olympic lifters and, your powerlifting rather. And then there started to become this middle ground, and that's your functional bodybuilding, I think is the term. And then you have like, from this book that I have, Firefighter Functional Fitness, which starts to blend everything together. Yeah, there's a little endurance side, and yes, there's a lot of that heavy strength stuff. So I started adapting a little bit from each, and what I kind of stick to for routine is a push-pull leg day. I'm terrible with the names of the different exercises. I think I've asked you 1,000 times, what is a clean? I know I do these movements, but I don't know what they're called. So cleans I got down because that one's easy. Kind of stick to a push-pull leg day. And pushing is just anything that pushes weight away from my body. So that could be overhead tricep extensions, or skull crusher, something like that. See, these are small movements versus actual pushing where I'm, maybe it's the sled, right? Kind of a heavy on a leg day thing, but that's straight. I'm just pushing weight. Pulling, I'm doing the exact opposite. So that could be anything down to, bicep curl to I'm pulling a sled, right? Even though, yeah, that's still including leg. The actual leg day is focused on straight up heavy legs where you're doing back squats, deadlifts, front squats, presses, leg presses, and even extensions, leg extensions and leg curls, things of that nature, right? And I kind of keep bumbling around those three areas, trying to get back into the running because that has slowly phased out. The nicer weather, yeah, you can run a lot, run better, but, better than the winter. But do I hate running. So that's kind of how it evolved. But way, way, way before all this, I had something completely different in mind. Before I got hired, I just started running because I knew I wanted to get hired. And I knew there was some sort of physical test, and everything that's out there. It's always do X amount of push-ups, X amount of sit-ups, and run an X distance. That's kind of the base for your initial assessments. So I focused on those three things and only those three things. And then as I came to learn, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah, I mean, we're similar because I do a push-pull and then legs, and then I have the clean day. What I was doing for a while is like our minds are pretty similar in the in the asymmetric symmetry style, is just for the sake of time and family life and everything else. And I knew some days life happens and you don't get to the gym. Is I would combine my push pull days were the same. So I would start with, and I just change this up because it's summertime. I have a little more time at the gym and I can work out a little bit differently. But during the school year, when my kids are at school and there's activities and stuff like that going on at the gym, when I'm lifting, I would start with a dumbbell press. And then my next exercise would be, a dumbbell row or a barbell row. So I would do a push and a pull in the same day, and I would alternate. And then I would superset stuff. So if I was doing, a lot of times my supersets would be cable flies for chest, and then I would do cable flies for back, and I would superset those. And I would work my back and my chest at the same time. Now with the summertime and a little more time, I have to, without kids, not worrying about kids shuttling back and forth to school, doing stuff around the house or just, the job itself. a little more time at the gym and I can concentrate. Okay, today is a strictly push day. I'm going to just do my pushes. The next day is strictly a pull day. I'm going to just do the pulls. I'm trying to figure out if it's better to isolate the push days separately than the pull days. I mean, it probably is. But at the firehouse, like I said, I don't feel like I got that time where I can concentrate on a strict push day or a strict pull day or even a leg day. There are times when I've been able to work legs at the firehouse, but most of the time at the firehouse is a high intensity workout, 30 minutes, 6 exercises, 30 minutes. I enjoy doing the EMOMs. I don't like doing the AMRAPs. I don't know why, but I just don't. But and when I try to work in those HIIT exercises, is I'll do some sort of fast paced cardio, and that could be the Ski ERG, which is a phenomenal machine. If your firehouse can invest in one, or if you can get one, those are a phenomenal machine to have. Ski ERG for however many calories, and as you work up, you can build your calorie count higher in that minute. I would start out at 10 calories in the minute. Now I'm up to 12 calories in a minute because you just can go faster pace, the more fit you get. Then you work in some sort of upper body workout to lower body workout, back to an upper body workout, and then maybe another cardio, a sprint, something that raises it's not physically intensive, heavy, but it raises your heart rate more. And then I started working in some core stuff, which I really think is important for firemen to have is a lot of core, because a lot of stuff we do is core workouts.
Which is kind of, a lot of the core does get built into some of the repetitions that we do. Even when you're squatting, take for example, you do a back squat, you're engaging and locking up your core. Right. You're kind of pushing out to stiffen everything, and then going down for your squat and then coming back up. You are engaging your core, so that does build in. But I agree with you. What you're saying is that this is a time dependency thing. Kind of drives what you do at the firehouse versus what you can do at home or in the gym off duty. And I kind of fall in that same thing. I don't usually stick to EMOMs per se, just because I don't like to let myself feel defeated. I'm in the gym to feel good. I can't. It's a stupid mental game. I don't like seeing your numbers on the board, and then I start doing it. I go, wow, how did he manage this? Or something like that. But if I go, I'm gonna do 10 reps in a minute of a heavy weight, and I can only get 8, and then the next one you're only you're getting to 7. You're just starting to get exhausted. I mean, that's the whole point of working out, is to push yourself. Yes, but it's like, man, I lose a little bit more motivation than I should in that moment. But building a circuit has allowed me to put more, use less time and be more efficient.
The nice thing about EMOMs is that you can tailor them down to whoever is going to do them. The movements are not tough. Yeah, it's push-ups, pull-ups, Ski ERG, whatever you put in there, they're just normal movements. And the weight is just that's where you tailor the workout to who's doing it. You don't have to, the weight that someone puts up on a board, if that's your first time doing that movement, you don't have to do the weight that they're doing, because everybody's different.
Everybody's got different, physicalities. So with all these workouts, we have kind of the idea of, well, let me ask you this. What are the requirements at work? Are there any requirements? And do you think there should be requirements, both for career and volunteer?
So does our job have requirements? No.
The job in general?
I mean,
or are you talking about work?
To get on in general, to get, I don't know, I can't speak for other departments. I can speak for departments around our area. I don't think there's a physical standard once you're on the job. You pass the seat, you go through the academy, and that's one of the things I disagree with lately with our academy is that they are strictly doing PT for them to pass the CPAT, which I don't agree with. The CPAT is 10 minutes and 20 seconds of your career, which could be a 20-year career, it could be a 30-year career. So you're doing 13 weeks of PT for 10 minutes and 20 seconds of your 20-year career. And I think that's a disservice to the recruits that we're putting through. New York State has gotten better with the volunteer side once they put in the TOAC, and the TOAC is a task orientated air consumption drill. You can YouTube it. The New York State's put a video on what the TOAC is and what they have to do. I think that's a good bridge for the volunteers, that shows them what the physical aspects of the job is, and it's a pass fail. And you know how pass fails go in some of these volunteer firefighter ones. You know, they just kind of turn their back on some of them and just
sometimes it's subjective.
Yeah, and my personal opinion, I think there should be some sort of physical standard, and I'm probably going to get backlash from this if guys at work are listening. There should be some sort of physical standard in the fire service. And that's not, one, you need it for the job. Two, you need it not only for yourself on the job, but you need it for the guy that's sitting to the left of you and sitting to the right of you. They're depending on you. And if you have a family at home, they're depending on you to come home. And if there's no standard, if there's no minimum standard for physical fitness at work, you're doing yourself a disservice and you're putting yourself at risk. Exercise is the one thing proven that will make you healthy. You can out-exercise a bad diet. You can do it. Chad Ochocinco, wide receiver for the Bengals in the early 2000s, he ate McDonald's every day.
The dirty bulk.
Yeah. He ate McDonald's every day, and he was one of the fittest people in the NFL. You can outwork a bad diet. You can't, if you're not doing anything to work out or be fit. The best, you look at some of these people that eat clean and everything else, but they don't do anything physical, they still look unhealthy. Now, I'm not saying that I don't know what his blood work, what Ochocinco's blood work looked like. His cholesterol and LDLs could have been skyrocketed from all the crap in the Big Macs. But he was a professional athlete at the top of his game for however many years, playing in the NFL, eating Big Macs every day, But I feel there needs to be a standard with all the other things we deal with in the fire service, the cancer, PTSD, you name it. Getting in the gym and doing something physical will help all those things. That's just my personal opinion. And I don't know what the standard should be. I do think the NFPA is a lot of things, and I don't agree with a lot of things NFPA says and does. There are some good things they do. I think a lot of stuff they do is money driven. And the NFPA physical, I think if departments adhered to the NFPA physical, you could wipe out 75% of the job. And I'm just throwing that number out there. That's how strict that physical is. And one of the reasons is I think they use BMI. Now, if I was going to if you look at the BMI for me, I'm in the obese, 207 pounds, 5'10". Just because of my height and weight, it says I'm obese. But I do 9/11 stair climbs. I do, I work out every day, coach kids baseball. If you look at me, you wouldn't say, "Oh, Lou's obese." Nobody would say that. You're probably on just at the line for your height and weight.
It's actually it's in the obese category.
There's no way.
It's incredible.
There's no way I would say, "Oh, Matt is obese." It's ridiculous that scale is the way it is because they don't take in consideration the muscle mass. All right, yeah. So if you're gonna do standard for body fat, we used to do the skin fold test, and I don't know if anybody's wrestled or anything or had a body fat test done, but you pinch the back of your arm, you get the skin fold there. You pinch your back, they do your gut. And I think I want to say the calf. That gives you a pretty accurate reading for your body fat. But a cheap way, good alternative way, is to get the scales or the handheld. The best way is to have both, because the way the scales or the handhelds work is they take the body fat percentage of just your, if you're stepping on the scale, it's the body fat percentage of your lower half. So if someone has a lot of muscle mass on their legs, it's gonna give you a lower body fat percentage. If someone just does squats all day, like the Olympic lifters, that they might be like 300 pounds and they're fat up top, but they can squat 800 pounds. They're gonna have a body, if they just use the scale to measure the body fat, they're going to have a lower body fat percentage compared to if they just did a handheld, because a handheld's going to measure the top half of the body. So a personal trainer told me a better way of doing it. It's not the most accurate way, but it's a more accurate way than just using the scale or the handheld. Is you use the scale, you get the body fat percentage off the scale, then you do the handheld, you get the body fat percentage off the handheld. You take the average of the two, and that's going to get you pretty close to what your actual body fat percentage is. The most accurate way is to doing the submersion test. I think you called it the egg.
Yeah, I want to say when I was in college, they had something. It was mostly for the sports teams. Most of the athletes use this thing, and they regularly. And it was like they stepped into it filled with water. It worked something like that.
One of the, and we could do this in our firehouse. And I've talked to the guy that is in charge of our health and wellness program here. I think one of the best things we should be doing in the fire service across the board, volunteer, career, from probationary fireman in the academy all the way up to the senior guy that's going to retire, we should be doing a VO2 max test every year, because that gives you your like aerobic output for, you can, and there's charts out there that shows you where you should be. As I'm 40 years old, it shows me where I should be as a 40-year-old. It gives you average, above average, the super athlete with their VO2 max is compared to someone that's not in shape. And the nice thing about a VO2 max is that it's actually an obtainable. You can change it. There's numbers out there that there's a goal that you can reach. If your VO2 max is lower than the standard, it's with hard work you can improve your VO2 max. Body fat, some people it's tough to change their body fat composition. Some people are lucky. We got guys here that when we used to do the skin, they had to do the skin folds on some of the guys here, because the handhelds that we would do for our assessments wouldn't read any body fat on them because they had such low body fat percentage. So the personal trainer had to do skin folds on them to actually get a number for the assessments that we used to do.
How do you change the VO2 max? Is that calculated mostly on, I guess, is that a strength thing, or is that more in tune with an endurance thing?
I'm going to look it up.
I don't know enough about it.
I'm under the assumption, and I could be wrong, like I said, I'm going to look it up right now, that VO2 max is a combination of cardio, your not cardio like cardio workout, but your cardio and pulmonary output. VO2 max, or maximum oxygen consumption, is the maximum amount of oxygen a person can use during an intense exercise. It is a measure of how well your body can take oxygen from the air and deliver it into your muscles, and is considered the best indicator of cardiovascular fitness and aerobic endurance. A higher VO2 max means your body is better at producing energy and performing work. So that definition right there, I mean, just that last line, a higher VO2 max means your body is better at producing energy and performing work. Firefighting is performing work, and we only have a limited amount of air. So if your body, it's how efficient your body uses oxygen, essentially.
All right, so we're talking. This is reading our something at the base level, right? And I know there's a ton of different devices, but if you're measuring pulse, I'm guessing respiratory rate in some capacity, but another side of that is oximetry.
So I know that we just had the treadmill in our firehouse, and that you put the band around your chest, you hit the VO2 max button, and it measures on the level of intensity of the workout is and your pulse rate. And it gives you a pretty accurate reading from the reading I've done on our treadmill and it pretty, I would say within 10% of your VO2 max. You you could Google or YouTube VO2 max tests where they have the fighter pilot mask on and they're actually measuring the CO2.
So like, and title, all that.
Yeah. But when I took the PFT class through the IFF, the personal trainer there, they couldn't come out and say because of the curriculum, but off the record, he pretty much said VO2 max is probably the best test you can do for assessments. And
Really?
like I said, the nice thing about that VO2 max test is that there are standards for your age, for male and female. It's all out there, and it's not to me. And we talked about it before. Where BMI, you look at BMI is very analytical. It's height and weight. That's it. If you should be this heavy or this light if you're this tall or this short. And that's the BMI is the BMI. That's why I think the body fat percentage is a little bit better. But if you are going to measure output, someone that can do the VO2 max is one of the better assessments. And what you can also do for VO2 max, if you don't have a VO2 max test on your treadmill, but you still have the band, there's METs. There's a METs conversion. So there's tables you can look at that will convert your MET rate and convert it over to the VO2 max. So that, and this stuff is all out there. You can, with a couple keystrokes, you can find all this information out there.
So you did well, let's roll right into that. So you did the PFT course. Can you explain what that is?
So the PFT course is through the IFF. It's expensive. It's a lot of it's a lot of money up front for the department, but it's well worth it. So PFT stands for Pure Fitness Trainer. It used to be through ACE, whatever ACE was. It was like you didn't come out with a personal trainer certificate, but you still got a Pure Fitness Trainer. But the ACE was like nationally recognized. So if you wanted to go on through the ACE program, you could probably roll it into a personal trainer. The IFF kind of went on their own, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago. And they have what it's called now Fit to Thrive, F2T. This course is good because it breaks it down pretty simple. What they teach is not so much how to train people, but how to make sure people are training correctly and teaching. Like I said, you're not there as a physical personal trainer, but you're there if someone's in the gym with you. Like I just did this to one of the guys on my group working out. he was doing a particular exercise. I said, hey, this exercise he was doing, I think it was like Russian twists or something like that. And what they taught us is that those Russian twists, because you're not rotating at your hips, you're kind of twisting your lumbar spine, and over time that's gonna do some damage to your lumbar. And I told him a better exercise to do that is like the wood choppers, because you're rotating at your
Mm-hmm.
at your hips. So what the Pure Fitness trainer, the PFT class went through it talked about, I think it was like 7 basic movements, just like we talked about: push, pull, squats, lunges, very basic movements. But then they broke down those basic movements to make sure you're doing them correctly to prevent injury. Like the big thing was like your knees above toes. Make sure your knees are in line with your toes. So like when you're squatting, your knees should be your knees should be over your toes. Feet should be planted on the ground. All these things that you hear, the influencers or whatever. The influencers don't even talk about it. You watch some influencers and you're doing stuff incorrectly. Knees over toes. Don't shrug your shoulders. Don't twist at your lumbar spine. The hinge movement should be at your hips. So when you're deadlifting, it's a more of a hinge movement. Things like that. And then they showed us or they taught us and showed us, and then we actually created workouts based off of theoretical wants from these these firemen that, I want to have more endurance in XYZ. So they broke the training programs down into strength, power, speed, and endurance. And they showed us, if you want to do an endurance workout, you concentrate on your rest work ratio. And endurance is going to be a longer work, shorter rest time frame. You're not worried about reps. You're not worried about weight. You're mostly concentrating on time under tension for the work period with a very short rest period. If we're doing a speed workout, we're going to do a lot of reps in a very short amount of time, and then we're going to rest for a while. For a strength workout, we're concentrating on the amount of reps. We're not concentrating on time. And if we can't do those reps with the amount of rest period we give the person, then we just increase the rest time, because we're not worried about time. We're worried about the reps that we're getting in. And a strength workout is usually 8 to 12 reps. With a power, we're not worried about time at all. We're not worried about reps. We're worried about weight or resistance. So that would be, and this is where I always thought, like we were having this discussion earlier, I always thought like people that go into the gym and do PR days was just a waste of time. But a personal record day, or when you do a personal record workout, a 1 to 2 lift set is actually pretty important. One, it tells you what your max weight should be, because your max weight is going to dictate all your other workouts. So if your deadlift max, just throwing this out there because it's for easy math, if your deadlift max is 100 pounds, your strength workout is going to be at 85% of that. Your speed workout is going to be, a smaller percentage of that. And then your endurance workout is going to be whatever, and these numbers are all in the book, so I don't have to remember them. That's the great thing about books. You can reference these tables, and you can look online for this stuff too. But that's why you need those PRs. You need to know what your max weight is, and it creates that power muscle, because there's everybody's born with some sort of muscle. Not everybody has fast twitch muscle like Usain Bolt, but everybody has some sort of fast twitch muscle. You can't get to Usain Bolt, but you can train your fast twitch muscle to get faster. You're just not going to be as fast as an Olympic sprinter. Everybody has some power muscle. not everybody's going to be a Olympic powerlifter, but you can train your muscles that way. That's why, I I haven't done it. I haven't really figured out a lot of my PRs. Probably something I should do. I kind of have an idea what they are, but do you ever do a PR day?
A long time ago. Not I don't I'm all over the place. I just go and I just work until I feel exhausted, and I know that's not the answer at all. I try to mix it up, like we said earlier. The push pull leg day is my base, and then if I could do that every other day, and then in between is either running or some sort of cardio. It's tough because when I run, I naturally think, oh man, I'm burning away everything I just worked for. I don't know how it got looped in my head, but so I've gotten away from worrying about my max weight I can bench or lift in general. I mean, I'm conscious of it, but I don't. I have no idea what my PRs are.
I wanted to talk about this earlier. I wrote a note, and we just kind of went on a different topic. But when people run cardio, running for cardio is great, but running is also endurance. But the only endurance you're getting is in your leg muscles. But you need upper body endurance as well on this job. Pulling
Mm-hmm.
ceilings is you pull ceilings during an overhaul, and you got to pull a lot of ceilings. It takes a lot of upper body endurance. So you have to figure out some movements or some workouts to create upper body endurance. Most people just think, I'm going to get on a bench and, bench 225 or whatever your bench is and work out and get a good strength workout, but they never hit that endurance workout. Guys on our job that they could run through a brick wall, and I can't run through a brick wall, but I know somebody that can run through the brick wall. He works on your group. Then after that brick wall's down, he's done. Shot. Gone. Stick a fork in him. Send him to rehab. Get him to Lorna Dunes, because that's about all he's good for at that point.
It's funny you say the endurance thing and pulling ceilings. So that did cross my mind. It was about, I can't remember if I told you or not, about a year and a half ago. So the gym that I go to on my off days, they have a squat rack, and it's got 4 posts, and off the front post, so the crossbar that goes across the top, they have a pull-up bar that's attached to it. And the way that this thing's attached is it's 2 tubes come straight off of it, and then you have the pull-up bar going across. And it's essentially what it's doing is it creates there's a little rectangular space above your head. Okay, very, very small. And I realized that if I take the barbell, yeah, I can stick that up inside there, and it's about 35 to 45 pounds depending on which one you grab, and then you do it just like the push, literally the push and pull machine that you have in the CPAT, and I'm thrusting it up, so I'm not getting the ceiling pulls, but I'm getting the pushing.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and I got the earphones on, I'm cranking away, and I'm just trying, I'm counting, but I'm looking forward. Well, the manager came up and tapped me, and she's like, "Hey, man, you got to go." And I didn't realize that I was smashing the light above the light. It wasn't the light bulb, but it was the clear plastic. And he's like, "Man, you're making a lot of noise. You gotta beat it." I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just okay, fine." But I've been since trying to come up with some other method of pushing. Obviously, you could pull cables, do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It felt more natural to grab a bar, and move it. But you just made me think of that.
Yeah, and I talked about grip strength before, and I wish we had one in our gym. I don't know what they're called, but they're like the thick handled barbells.
Oh, yes, but they make these foam attachments. One of the companies called Fat Grip.
Yes, yeah. Those are great for grip strength, but when I was traveling for teaching, the YMCA out where the training facility was, they had it's a pretty old YMCA, but they got some good equipment there, and they got the deadlift floors. I don't know what you call them, where they got
the platform and all that.
Yeah, the platform. It's got the rubber mats where the plates hit, and then it looks like an old wood gym floor where you stand. But they have awesome selection of barbells, and they had one of those wide grip
Oh, that's
barbells.
awesome. You don't really see those too often, at least not in
No,
the Globo gyms.
but what I didn't realize, so I'm putting the plates on like I'm normally what I normally deadlift, and I'm not thinking because it's I've taught for 8 hours and I'm just getting a workout in. I'm not thinking this bar's thicker. It, I'm not thinking it's heavier, so I'm putting the normal weight on it. I'm trying to pull this weight up. I'm like, I know this is working my grip strength, but man, this feels heavy. What I didn't realize, a normal barbell, Olympic barbell, is 45 pounds. I think
Hmm.
this barbell is like 75.
Oh, is it that much of a difference?
Yeah, it's significantly heavier. I can tell you that. But that with the grip strength. But I would like to see maybe our firehouse buy some of those. The what would you call them? The foam grip. What are they?
Fat Grip, I think, is
Fat
the
grip.
brand. That's one of the brands that's
One of the
out there,
brand.
so it
Yeah,
just fits right around.
yeah,
But other than that, I mean, we don't have that, but we've stated it before. Farmers carries.
yeah, yeah. Farmers
You know,
carries are awesome. Or even working out. You ever work out? Not workout gloves.
nope.
You and I are
Yeah,
completely
yeah,
against working out with
yeah. Which
workout gloves.
we've already alluded to that. Yeah, there's no.
But you ever work out with your fire gloves on?
No, actually, I have not.
Try it.
Is it
You
very?
want to
It's
talk
humbling.
about
I take it.
you want to talk about a grip strength. Your forearms will burn. Like doing farmers carries or just one of the workouts I used to do when we had limited equipment. We were just starting to buy the equipment here. We had the sled, we had the battle rope, but we really didn't have the stuff that we have now, the bags and the sandbags and some of the other equipment. I would take the sled and tie the battle rope onto it.
I do the same thing.
But instead of using just your bare hands, you put in your structural firefighting gloves on and try to pull that sled with your structural firefighting gloves on. It the that is an awesome grip strength forearm workout. Besides everything else, it's working out, but just the amount of I don't know the right word, the space or the padding in those gloves that you have to overcome to grip. It's significant and it increases your grip strength, which you need in the fire service.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of those gloves, they even depends on the brand and which size is issued to you at the time. But it always feels like some of them end up with almost feels like you have webbed fingers.
Yeah,
Because you can't open them as wide as you can without a glove. Because they're either too constricting or you go the other route and they give you a size too large. So you got it feels like you got the foldovers in front of your fingertip or whatever. It's just a lot to overcome.
yeah. So interesting enough, we were talking about earlier. One of the probies, he used to be like a bodybuilder, and he's talking about like he can't do as much as he could do, and we're talking about him at the academy, and during truck week we do the ladder circus. And if you don't know what the ladder circus is, if you guys nobody's ever done a ladder circus, the way we run it here is two aerials, a 35, a 28, a 16, a 24, and you're just going up and down ladders, and you do 4 laps.
Yeah,
And
there's
one of
usually some stairwells included. So you go
yeah,
up one, down a stairwell, down another, and
yeah,
you just keep
I
climbing and climbing and climbing.
yeah, I tracked it on my watch one time, and it was I forget, it was like 3,000 steps or something like that. I can't remember what it was. It was some ridiculous amount of steps or whatever it was. But these academy recruits, they're going through it. They're doing PT every day. They should be in top physical condition, but then you put them in this ladder circus in full PPE with an air pack on, and some can't even get through 4 laps. And he says to me, he goes, Cap, I don't know how. He goes, you did all 4 companies, all 4 laps. He goes, I know how you did it. And I told him, I go, it's mental at that point. I
In
think a
terms of
lot
just not giving up,
not
or
not giving up, knowing you kind of put it in the back of your mind. It's just climbing ladders at this point. Is there physical fitness involved in it? Is there cardio involved in it? Is there endurance involved in it? 100%. But it's not like I go and put a ladder circus up at work every 8 days and do a ladder circus to train for it. I don't even know how you would train for it. I think it's just mental. And it's a discussion we were having with Mike. It's almost like that don't quit mentality.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I remember that stuck out to me. That was one of the things I learned. I mean, I learned a lot in my academy, but that was a really big thing. And I try to reiterate that in all the academies that we teach now is that there's some sort of threshold that you believe you have, and I think it's just you need to be shown the light, if you will, of you always think you have a threshold. This is my limit. This is my max. I got to give up, or I'm shot. I'm beat. I need a break. And when somebody pushes you past it, or at least shows you how to push past that, all of a sudden that threshold moves so far above, it feels like it just disappears. So you can just keep going. I always thought it was a crock of shit when people said, "Oh, it's in your head. Just put it out of your head. Keep moving. You can do it." It's like, man, but my legs are burning, or I'm out of breath. Whatever the physical task is at the time. But once you move past it, man, it clicks. I never got similarly, they talk about runner's high. I might have I think I felt that once. The first mile always sucks because you're just sort of loosening up. 2 and 3 miles start to be, okay, you're just kind of in the zone. You're just moving at that point. When you get close to, let's say you set a distance of, usually I'll go between 5 and 10 miles. If I'm doing my 10 miles, that 10th mile all of a sudden feels like the hardest. But I think it's because I've always put a limit. I'm like, I'm setting out to go 10 miles. So that first mile, you're like, I got 9 more to go. You're just warming up. 2 through 9 seem like they're a piece of cake. Then suddenly, how come that 10th mile? What if I set that and I said, oh, you know what? Not my threshold for the day, but my goal is 20 miles. Is 2 through 19 going to be a piece of cake then?
I don't know. I was smirking because it's the same thing. Like that first mile, it seems to be always my slowest pace. Then my pace gradually gets better.
How does it get better?
Right, and then
I thought I was getting more exhausted.
Yeah, but that was another thing the PFT class hit on was increasing your capacity to do work. And without having good physical fitness, you don't have capacity. So if firefighting has a heavy workload, and if you think of it as a pint glass, or I hate you talking. I used to bartend at Applebee's. And if anybody's been at Applebee's, they have pint glasses and then they have the tall boys. I don't even know what the ounces are. Without physical fitness, you're only going to be able to have a workload that fits into that pint glass. But with more physical fitness, you can go up to the tall boy, and now you can fill that tall boy up with more workload. If you don't have that physical fitness, that glass is going to overflow with your capacity, or your capacity is lower than your workload, which is now overflowing, and that's when your body shuts down and fails.
I gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a good analogy, but I don't know why.
I got you. Yeah.
Beer glass just popped into my head. You kind of do the same thing I do with some of our training sessions. You just go until you're physically exhausted. You can't move anymore. And that's some of the workouts I do. When we were writing them on the board, there was sometimes I put a workout on the board and I would text you. I go, yeah, didn't finish this one. I got to here, at this point, and I just couldn't do anymore. But that workout stayed on the board until I beat it.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where I was not going to let this workout beat me. I was going to get it.
You.
At some point, I was going to get it. I don't know if it was today, the next day, or 2 weeks from now. I was going to get it. And should get back to that, putting those workouts on the board.
And a lot of those were prior to, because you just recently took that class. How long ago was that?
For
you?
It was this February.
Okay. And prior to that, we were doing a lot of those, especially, man, the missus hated that when, because it stopped what I'm doing. I get that text, or we're already at the gym. Like, I got a break. I got to do this thing. She goes, "Oh, Louis sent you another photo, did he?" Yeah, I can't let him beat me today, and some of those were pretty brutal, but they were always kind of more, I always call them like circuit based. Some of those were every minute on the minute. Like you stated before, not a lot of them were as many reps as possible, but it would go one, then the next, then right into the next. So you're not quite supersetting, but you're just going from one exercise to the next for a total of like one round. Maybe the goal was 5 rounds. And, sometimes you had to edit those, especially if you're feeling, man, like right now, my shoulder. I texted you the other day. I'm like, hey, is this supposed to feel like it's tearing in my shoulder? My shoulders are weak. In my head, I'm like, no, it's nothing. Just like I just said, just push past it. You can do more, but really my arm's falling apart. That's probably a time to take a break. But I enjoy when we put those things up. And I noticed, it's funny you said we should start doing it again. Somebody else has been in the weight room adding stuff. And I see 2 different handwritings all the time. So that's nice to see other people starting to get into this as well and putting their own thing up there. I don't know who's doing them. I can't tell you. I think I have an idea, but all right, that's a good one. Let's run that today.
I had a proud moment the other day, and it's probably good for him for what he's going through. But Nick, he's down taking care of some family business, and he shot me a text message. He goes, got in the hotel gym and I did a little mini Louis workout, and he goes, "I kicked my ass." I was like, "Yeah, good for you." And I was like, I go, probably decompressed you from some of the stuff you're dealing with right now. And he's like, yeah. I feel a little bit better.
That's awesome. Awesome. So, all right. So you write those things on the board, or you were writing those on the board. You still do your workouts now. Going through that Pure Fitness class, has that changed how you work out? Both at the firehouse and outside of work?
I would say it's changed more of what I do outside of work. And what it has changed is, one, I got a watch for free from our senior guy that retired. He says, here, I was talking about getting a fitness watch. I wasn't sure what to get. And he goes, "Hey, I got this Garmin. You want it?" I'm like, "Yeah, how much you want it for?" He's like, "Nothing. Just take it." I was like, "All right." So I started wearing a watch, and that started keeping me more on track of my work rest cycles. If anybody owns a fitness style watch and you do your workouts on it, you start your sets on it, times your sets, then you hit rest, and it times your rest period. So that got me on track with more of my work rest cycle, how much time I was resting in between sets. So I know if I'm doing a strength day, I'm not really worried about my rest time. I'm more worried about the reps that I'm getting. But if I'm worried about endurance, I'm definitely looking at my rest time. But I do that more not at work, because I still feel at work you never know when the tones are going off.
Right.
So at work, I still gear towards those 30-minute high intensity workouts. But what it has done for me across the board is making sure my form is correct on the movements I'm doing. I've incorporated some of the movements that they kind of hit on, like I never was a guy that did lunges. I always thought they're for females.
Great. Add that to the list of things I can't do in the firehouse anymore.
No, but taking the Pure Fitness class, they hammered on lunges in that movement. And we talked about doing asymmetric loading.
Mm-hmm.
If you do lunges with two dumbbells and it's symmetrically loaded, that's good. But if you drop one dumbbell and you do it asymmetrically, now not only are you working out your legs and doing that lunge movement, but you're incorporating your entire core and lower back to keeping everything straight.
Yeah, it's all stabilization.
It's all stable. Well. Yeah. So that's one of the things I picked up. So when I do these high intensity workouts, one of the exercises I'll incorporate are lunges or box steps, and I'll asymmetrically load it to make sure I keep my core engaged with some of the stuff. A lot of the biggest takeaway is to make sure my movements are correct so I'm not injuring myself.
Has there been anything that it's shown you need to cut out?
I don't think so. I think it's more it justified some of the workouts I was doing.
Okay.
And I was telling you, not on the, not recording, but one of the instructors we had was he's part of the Canadian Olympic strength. He was a Canadian. He's the strength and conditioning coach for a bunch of Canadian athletes and teams. So this guy's legit. And they would stick to the IFF curriculum, which is good. The curriculum was good. It was very basic, and like I said, it hampered on movements to keep guys on the job, longevity, not having injuries, and doing the workouts based on what the needs of the individual was. But talking to him off the record, I would talk to him about some of the movements I was doing, like power cleans, deadlifts, and stuff like that. And he kind of confirmed everything that I like, gym bro science. And he's like, yeah, you're doing everything. I'm not saying you're doing everything right. Not a personal trainer.
You're on the right track.
I'm on the right track. But like I said, the biggest takeaway was cracking down on my form on some of the stuff. Probably the biggest form thing. And I knew it was bad. I knew it was bad for me, and I didn't do it often, but now I'm more self-aware of it, is keeping my knees over my toes whenever I'm doing a squat or a deadlift. You never want to see your knees go in. It almost like a baby, equated to like a baby deer walking. You want your knees going over your toes the entire time. And they showed us pictures of Robert Griffin III and him doing at the NFL Combine. They're showing him doing one of the tests. I think it was the long jump or the vertical height test, the same test that we do, where you jump and you hit the little sticks to see what your vertical jump is. And when he was squatting down to jump, his knees were almost touching because they were so far in. And RG3 didn't have that long a career. Amazing athlete, but he didn't have that long a career because his knees were shot.
Buckling in.
Yeah. There's actually a great account. Jocko talks about it. I haven't looked at the account. It's on Instagram. I think it's called Knees Over Toes. Okay. This guy, just from good form and practicing, is shows how to just from strengthening and jumping correctly, says anybody can dunk a basketball. I mean, obviously, if you're not, I shouldn't say even if you're 5'2", because there was NBA players that were, how tall was I can't even think of the guy in the 90s, a little short guy. He was like 5'2".
AI, was it?
No, he was like a little short guy. He was like 5'2", could still dunk. Unbelievable.
I can't think of it. There's another account, Squat University, is out there, and he goes through a lot of form. So it's not just squats, but that's his big focus. And he goes into a lot of science-based models, how your feet should be planted, knees tracking over toes, and how your hips, how to figure out the spacing between your legs, or between your feet, and how far of an angle your toes should be pointing out, if at all. And a lot of it is just your hip placement and how your joint, the ball and socket, rotates through for every individual. Some people have more of a closed hip. Some people have more of an open hip. And listening to him and watching a bunch of these videos he's got there, he's got them on YouTube and Instagram. I'm sure there's some other platforms, but it's very enlightening, how to properly move. Now add the weight. and what happens when you're, let's say doing a back rack squat versus front squat. Obviously you're shifting the weight, so your center of gravity's, different. So how that affects your body and how to work your core and everything, stiffen that core, like you were saying. So stabilizers. There's a bunch of good stuff out there. Like you said, you just throw, a couple keystrokes and you can get a lot of good information. One of the other things we came across, we did a couple. What's that?
Real quick, Muggsy Bogues. He was 5'3", 5'3", and can dunk.
That's it. Muggsy. One of the other things that we came across a couple years ago, we did a challenge called the GoRuck Chad 1000X. Or at least it was sponsored by GoRuck.
Yeah.
That was something we heard off one of the podcasts. Chad Wilkinson passed away. He was a Navy SEAL, passed away. Yep. And it was one of the workouts that he did while deployed. And it was, we took it, threw our own little spin on it, but it's usually a 20 to 30 pound weighted vest. You do 1,000 step ups on, was it 16 inches or no? We did 20 inch box.
So he did it because he was training to climb one of the mountains after he retired, I believe.
Is that what it was for?
That's what it was for.
Like he got a lot of the inspiration through just on deployments.
Yeah, and then his wife Sarah, used that workout for suicide awareness with veterans.
So we did, the 1 year we did that, and I think there was a couple other guys that did it at the firehouse as well. But we had the vests, and boy, starting that up, it was nice because that little program. It doesn't sound like a lot, but 1,000 step ups, especially 20 inches. Your average step isn't that high. Man, that you can't just jump on it and do 1,000. You have to work up to that, and we did that 2 months maybe.
Yeah,
ahead of time. It was broken down.
Yeah,
starting with 100 a day and then working up every week, and that was. In order to do that, I'd have to start all over. I do other movements now that kind of mimic that, but nothing near that. Now that was a great feeling to be able to do 1,000. I mean, you're sweating buckets.
Yeah, and that was another thing we would keep track on the board. I would do this many this day, and you would come in and all right, I did this many this day, and then
the next one, keep pushing, and that helped having that little bit of motivator back and forth. And then, how did you end that one? Did you wrote her an email or something? I mean, we donated, but for the cause, because they do a big challenge.
Yeah, I think it was over Instagram. We donated. I think we also sent her some patches and like a challenge coin or something like that as well.
Yeah, and she responded. She sent us out a couple T-shirts and a patch sticker and stuff, which is in the gym. Yep. Love having that stuff around. So it's kind of like, it's nice to see some of those things. Maybe some of the other organizations and things like that, you put these little gimmicks up, but it's when you have all these things lined up on the board or across the firehouse or your own personal gym, it's kind of like, it's almost reminders not to slack, right? So we got one end is pushing our threshold. The other end is, well, don't revert and bring that threshold back down either.
Yeah, like when we hit, what do we have? How many guys for the Rochester 9/11 climb?
Originally it started with like 4 of us.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden 15, there was something like that.
15 of us, and then we ended up winning the donation thing, and
we crushed it. Crushed the donations, but we even crushed the climb, stair climb. They originally told us it was, whatever it was it was a 9/11 stair climb. I forget what the exact stair count was. But by the time we were done with it, we had actually the guy you were just referring to, Nick. Nick went around again.
Right.
They're like, whoa, you're done. He's like, nah, I'm just going to keep going.
But having that little award, that little plaque that we got, it's up in our gym. It's a little reminder saying, hey, we did this in September, and I think the 15 or however many guys we had there, it's like, we're going to do this every year. Now it's a goal not only to train for that stair climb, but to, raise the money for the good cause. And the other thing, just because you and I gluttons for punishment, not only did we do it in full gear with our SCBA, but then we decided to take some extra SCBA bottles, the guys that work on the engine company, they brought a hotel pack,
A couple.
a couple hotel packs. So it wasn't like we were just climbing with just our turnouts on and no tools. I mean, those guys climbed however many steps they got up to, and they had all their gear. They had extra bottles. So, when I think about the 911 stair climb, it's always it's good for everybody to do it. But I wanted to do it the way they were doing it with all the extra stuff. So 110 flights can be between 2,071 and 2,860 steps, depending on the configuration of the stairs.
I remember I recorded it on my watch. I'd have to go back and pull the numbers, but I know it was a little bit more than that, just because I think the layout. We did it in for anybody listening, it was actually at a ballpark, baseball park. So it was up and down as we weave through the stands and everything. So it wasn't directly. That's the only downside that we don't have a 110 story building.
It's not straight up.
It's not straight up. So you do get that rest period as you're coming down, but coming down with weight, it's no different than hiking. I love to go hiking. Going up, you get to see a beautiful sight. You feel like you actually reach the pinnacle and everything. You're done. You still got to come down, and coming down with weight is actually pretty tough on especially on your knees. You're breaking the whole way coming down. So it's not a free ride. And I think a lot of people misconstrue that.
Well, think of it when you do a lunge movement, a backwards lunge is easier than a forwards lunge because your weight is already over your knee when you go backwards. You're not breaking your fall with your back step. All you're doing is you're supporting you're just kind of keeping your balance. That's almost going upstairs. You're pushing. It's a push up the stairs, and then you just land on your front foot. Going down is almost doing a foot. Almost, it's contradictory if you think about it. But if you do a forward lunge, you're breaking your fall with that forward step. That's why forward lunges are so much more difficult than a backwards lunge. Same thing. I think climbing is a lot easier than going down. I mean, yeah, gravity helps, but like you said, that constant pounding on your feet, the gravity's pushing you down. And I remember doing the 911 in Indy. I would climb and I get to the top and I would I got to go down these things now.
And the other side of doing some of these challenges, at least out in the public space, or at least with our peers in public. So they're not our direct peers that we work with at the firehouse, we volunteer with, but it's the other agencies or people that we have not seen before. I do remember the feeling showing up to that particular stair climb. We had our turnout on, we had all our air packs, we had the MSAs, which feel like they're heavier, spare bottles, the hotel pack, everything. We had a ton of weight, and nobody else had that. And there were some people out there that showed up. Mostly all of them had turnout gears, but they might have had sneakers, no pack. Some companies did a full kit, but they didn't have that extra.
Yeah.
But I do remember getting that kind of a look like, who do these guys think they are type of thing. And at first I'm like, oh man, now we the guys trying to show off. And that wasn't it. I hope that the great takeaway was that if we can do this with a little bit of preparation, everything, maybe we can inspire the next one other company. The next time they show up, they'll be like, hey, we're gonna bring a little, I'm not saying bring a satchel of rocks, but bring a little bit something extra. And inside of that together, all of us that were there were all different physicalities. Some of us are in a little bit more physical shape than the rest of us, but not one of our members dropped out or gave up halfway and nothing. And in fact, Nick was the one that just kept going.
Yeah.
That was awesome to see. We sparked that influence, and I don't mean you and I mean all of us. We did not let each other fail on this thing and just kept giving the attaboys, whatever way, the encouragement. Just take that one step, further. One team encourages the next.
Yeah. And you said at that stair climb, it was also a nice, I think that it put a smile on our chief's face when he saw some pictures of how many guys from Gates were there and compared to the other departments. And, we did get the looks, but oh well,
As long as we're not snotty about it,
no.
anything like that. We weren't. We showed up to play, and we played a little harder than some
Yeah,
people. I want somebody else to come up and challenge that. I think that's a
it's
healthy environment.
healthy competition. That's all
Yeah.
it was. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one way to be effective with all this stuff. And with that, the peer fitness thing, that's what was the total goal of that? Is that I know we do our assessments every year, and they kind of rely on the peer fitness instructors, trainers to handle those. But is there more stuff coming to fruition, coming down the pipeline about what you guys will be doing?
So a lot of that pure fitness stuff when we ran that class was because we're running the academy or our own county academy right now. We just didn't have the cadre of PT instructors for the recruits. So a lot of that was getting upping our cadre of PT instructors, which it did. In house in our department, our assessments have kind of taken a backseat, and that's through promotions, through guys get moved around on groups. We used to have one pure fitness trainer per group, and every quarter we would was it every quarter, right? That's how long it's been.
Oh man, when I first started, it felt like I'm pretty sure it was every quarter. I think it's twice a year now,
Yeah, I
or is
mean
it
I
once a
can't.
year?
So my group lost. Well, now we have two pure fitness trainers, but we haven't done assessments. Me and a fireman, but our original pure fitness trainer, when he got promoted, he went to staff. So now we didn't have a pure fitness trainer until this February. Now we have two. So the other goal was to come back with some more information, maybe revamp the assessments because the original assessments that we were doing, it was just numbers. All right, you did this many push-ups, you were able to plank for this many seconds, you did this many minutes on a treadmill, and your pulse got up to this. And guys were always asking, "Well, what should I be at?" And the pure fitness trainers, and not to their fault, it's just because they didn't have. That's just the way the assessments were done through WFI. Was just, well, this is what it is. We can't give you anything else. So that was what it was nice having that strength and conditioning coach from the Canadian Olympic team because I I haven't had emails with them in a while, but we were going back and forth about assessments after the class, and we have a meeting coming up with all the pure fitness trainers to hopefully revamp and revitalize our fitness assessments with some new equipment that we're coming in. I think each station is getting a leg press
I saw that.
because one of the discussions I had with the strength and conditioning coach about assessments was how do we assess lower body strength safely? Because the best exercise to assess that lower body strength is a deadlift. Hands down, period, end of discussion. The deadlift is the best way to assess somebody for the lower body strength. But the problem is that the deadlift done improperly can injure somebody.
Mm.
So you can't just stick. You can't just go to a personal record day on a deadlift and say, "All right, let's figure out what your deadlift is." It's something that needs to be worked up to and trained with proper form and technique. That's why we went out and purchased the leg press because we can. It's lower risk for injury on a leg press. Same thing with squats. You squat wrong, or that weight shifts. That could be God forbid it could be a career-ending injury. But that's why the leg press is a little bit easier. So once we get some more equipment in, the assessments are going to be coming back. We have some ideas that are going to be floated around, discussed. I'm big for the VO2 max test because that's like I just said before, I'm 40 years old. This is where I should be. If I'm not there, it's something I can work to. Or if I'm above average, and I want to get better, I can still work to there, or I can just maintain. But there's some stuff that it is what it's going to be. There's just no standards for, there's no standards for how many push-ups a 35-year-old male should do. It's something we could create. We want you to be at this many push-ups. We want you to be at this level of leg press. So that's coming down. Hopefully, I think our meeting isn't coming up middle of August. It's in my calendar. But yeah, we all have a meeting. So the assessments are going to be coming back. I hope my group is ready for it and strapped in, because not that I'm a fitness Nazi, but we talked about it.
They're going to see some numbers on the board they got to hit.
Well, just reiterating the fact, you need to be fit for this job. It's only going to be, you're only doing yourself a disservice if you're not physically fit for the job. And if you have a family at home, you should be doing everything impossible to stay as healthy as possible, so you can come home and enjoy your family. And then when you retire, you're not crippled from getting in and out of the rig all day or doing whatever. I would say getting out of the rig probably killed your knees more than everything else on the job. So if we
can, have you ever miscued on a step coming off the rig?
Miscued on a step, or stepping on your turnout because you throw your boots out and then you step on your gear. I really think, I'm trying to think, have I ever been in a, knock on wood, I mean my fake wood, I don't think I've been injured on the job where I've missed time. I've been injured doing stupid stuff at home, like dancing at a Flogging Molly concert. But that was a freak accident. But I also, a broken bone in my foot that the orthopedic told me it was going to be an 8-week heal. I was healed in 4 weeks. And he told me, give me 2 more weeks, because he wanted to make sure everything was good. And I don't think I would have came back in 6 weeks if I wasn't in the physical condition I was in. Then, God bless my wife, she was it was my right foot, so I couldn't drive. She was driving me to the gym, and I'm crutching into the weight room. And I'm doing upper body stuff sitting on.
I thought you were going to say legs.
No, I wasn't.
Babe, it's leg day.
It wasn't that stupid. But you think about it, the guys that are fit, the guys that are physically fit, they're not getting injured. It's the guys that aren't physically fit are the ones that are getting injured. Think about the one biggest injury we've had here.
Backs go real easy, and especially the lower back, and sometimes it can be just a fluke thing. But if you don't have that, think about the exercises you do, or that most people do. We talk chest, back. When we say back, we're typically talking about the upper back. We neglect in general the lower back. There's quite a few exercises to stiffen that up. By stiffen up, I mean strengthen your lower back, which we could all use an extra dose of that anyways. But everything that we do in the fire service relies on our back and our neck. Even, I know it doesn't seem like much, but our freaking helmets, cranking up and down them. You ever bump your head or you're crawling through something, you slam into something really hard, crushes your neck. That takes a long time to heal. You don't want to be out of service for the smallest little splinter in your spine or something like that, or because you twisted funny, you bent, improper positioning. Getting those stabilizer muscles in your lower back up to par really does make or break your career.
I always thought it was a joke too. I mean, I hit 40 this year, and I was like, I hit 40 the next morning, and it wasn't because my 40th birthday wasn't on my birthday party wasn't on my 40th birthday. But it was like the next morning after I turned 40, just sleeping. You wake up and you're like, what the hell did I do? All I did was go to sleep and I can't move, You'll get there.
I'm already feeling it. I'm already feeling it. This morning I sat down on the bed and put my socks on and my back was so stiff. like, oh, this is embarrassing. I didn't want to squeak the bed and wake her up. And then it wasn't that I want to wake her up, but I wanted her to see that I had to sit down and put my socks on because I slept funny. All right, so I got another question. You talked about you kind of already mentioned it a little bit here and there, and I think I know your answer on that, but you have a watch. Is that your only tool that you use? And is there another tool for somebody just getting started that you would recommend?
Tool for fitness or just
Yeah, fitness in general.
I mean the whiteboard.
Okay,
I mean
that's a good one.
it's I know a lot of guys journal their workouts. I shouldn't say never. I did in high school a little bit, but I was never disciplined about it. I know it's probably something you should do is journal your workouts and track them. When I work out with my wife, I kind of create after the PFT program, I kind of created a workout for her, going over just some general movements and strength and conditioning for her. And she's like, "How do you know what to do?" I was like, "Cuz I've done the same exercises for years." She goes, "Well, how do you know the weights?" I go, "Well, first of all, the YMCA weights only go up so heavy."
Oh,
So the dumbbells only go up to 110 pounds. So I know I'm not going up. I know if I start at 85 pounds on a press for a dumbbell press, I can only go up so high. So I started at 85 pounds and that's where I go. I'm not going up anymore. Same thing, with squat racks or even squats. Yeah, you've done it so long that you know the weights that you're capable of doing. So I never really felt a need to journal what my workouts are, but I think somebody getting into working out should probably journal. And you don't need to bring a pen and paper. Everybody's got a phone. Just journal it right on your phone. There's actually fitness apps on your phone that will journal it for you. The
yeah,
watch,
just like little check boxes. Boom, boom, boom.
yeah. The watch actually kind of does a journal for you because it tracks your movements. Some of the movements it doesn't really track that well, so you have to go in after it downloads into your app and you have to edit what your workout was. I never really track the weights, but if I'm disciplined about it, I'll go in and edit the workout. It like cleans. It really doesn't know. It can't track a clean on the movement because it's the wrist. It's only found the movement of your wrist. So I'll go in and adjust what the workout was for that day. So it's kind of a pseudo journal for my workout, but I would say someone getting into fitness, working out, should probably journal what they're doing so they can track their progress. But I think once you get to a point, there's a point when you want to get fit, and then there's a point where you think you're at a point where you're just going to maintain. My wife thinks I should just maintain where I am right now. And I'm like, no, more weight, what do you use anything besides, I know you got what, the Apple Watch, I got the Garmin.
I have an Apple Watch, and let's see what the first thing was. I didn't journal up until recent, and then I fell right out of it. Just because it took too long. It took too much out of my workout to sit there, type it all in. And I was just using the notes and just actually typing it out. It wasn't something that you check box. The very first thing I had was a pedometer, and I had an office job for a little bit, and it was like one of the reps for one of the insurance company had these stupid little pedometers. They give it to you. It just clipped right to your belt.
Oh yeah, that was big in the office world. Tick. Yeah.
My God, that was it was addicting. That's the only way I can put it, is that you see that number, whatever it was. For me it was probably like 4, and then not 400, 4 steps. And then you're like, oh, tomorrow I got to beat that, and it became this game. And then you just kept working out. So it started getting to the point where when I was in my lunch break, I'm eating a sandwich, but I'm also out in the parking lot just doing 100 freaking around the building, around the parking lot or up and down the street, until I just can keep beating that score over and over again. And then when I started getting to, this is about the time that I was really trying for the fire exams and all that stuff. So I'm like, I got my endurance, my runs. as I mentioned, so I can't remember what the device was. It was something one of the first electronic devices that would also track. I think it was like a Fitbit or something. Like the cheapest $25, whatever it was at the time, and it would track your run versus your walk. So it still counted my steps, but then it would also track my mileage. And it became, okay, this is what got me going. Okay, next thing you know, it's 5 miles a day. Then it's 10 miles a day. And eventually then, one thing blends to the next, and there's all sorts of different things out there. But I think anything between the whiteboard and the latest and greatest smart watch, autopilot, whatever freaking thing you can buy out there, it's about putting it in front of your face to give you that challenge. Every day is the next wave of your challenge. Even what I found when I was only did it for a couple months was the journaling thing. It was, you're seeing some sort of progress or stages. And when you see a blank day on there, that felt bad. You felt like you were doing something wrong. So you eagerly, the end of the day is coming up, even if it's 8 o'clock at night and you just didn't make time, which that's a whole different rationale right there. But if you're getting to the end of the day, you're like, no, I can't go to bed before I put something in this blank spot. And you go and do it so that you can write it down, right? It gives you this other mechanical device to defeat your, you could call it laziness or whatever. It gave you some sort of purpose.
I know exactly what you're talking, because since the watch, that's the calorie counter, your calories burned. That's like, if I'm not over 3,000 calories a day burned, I get pissed at myself.
Yeah, see? And these things these metrics might not even be accurate enough to some sort of clinical level, but it doesn't matter. It's whatever, as long as you're using the same device every day, you're just defeating that one, or at least hitting that same target. It's the same thing with the...
It's a standard deviation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like stepping on the scale. Everybody worries about the scale, so they step on the scale at the gym, then they step on one at home, and then they step, wherever these 6 different places that they go. I only use one. It's the one that's at the firehouse. I don't care what the number is, as long as right now I'm trying to gain weight, right? So as long as I know that number's going up, and that's not just eating Doritos and all the other shit, eating right, and which is leading me to the next thing. As long as I'm working out hard enough that I'm seeing a change on that scale and whatever the metrics are, because that one does do the BMI, the body fat, all that other stuff. As long as I'm seeing those metrics go in the direction I want, that's all I care. I don't actually care what the specific number is.
Before you get into the eating, I know you're going to hit on, you're going to talk about that. The other nice thing I like about the watches, and I don't know if the Apple Watch does it, but my Garmin, the sleep tracker.
It does. I don't know. I haven't used a Garmin watch to compare notes on the two and to see what I like. All I like seeing is how many hours I was sleeping. And so if it's roughly, maybe it's off by an hour. I don't care. As long as I see that, the more sleep I can get, the more rested I think I feel. And when I see 4 hours on there, I know I did a crap job. When I see 8, okay, I'm feeling pretty good about myself.
So some more Jim Bro science with some backyard testing over vacation. Anybody that, thinks they need to drink alcohol to go to sleep or whatever like that, the nights that, some late nights at the campground or whatever, go to bed at maybe 11:30, 12 o'clock, and campground, but it's campfire. Going to bed 11:30, 12 o'clock with a couple of drinks in me, and I would sleep in the next morning. The sleep that I recorded on my watch was terrible. It showed my body under stress and not resting. And then the next night, if I, go to bed at a normal time, or even, still 11:30, but not having a drink in me, it would show restful sleep. I could show you on the app on my phone, and I could pick up, without even knowing what day it was, I could tell you what night I had a couple drinks and what night I didn't have a couple drinks, just based on showing you the sleep.
It just knows the difference in your sleep pattern. It's not like you said, hey, this night I did something different.
Just based on the sleep pattern.
Recalculates?
Yep.
Okay.
Based off of your body movement, your heart rate, and something else it calculates. but it shows like your REM, your deep sleep, your light sleep, and your sleep pattern should look like a sinus wave up and down from
Hmm.
light sleep, deep sleep up to REM sleep and back and forth. It should look like hills and valleys. And the one thing it shows, the graph it shows is blue lines are rest, and shades of orange and red is when your body's under stress. And I'm sleeping. I would sleep 10 hours because I'm on vacation and my kids were up doing whatever, fishing or whatever they were doing. And I had didn't really have to worry about them. 10 hours of sleep and my body is under stress while I was sleeping, compared to nights where I wouldn't have a couple beers
Hmm.
and I would get less sleep, but I was more rested.
No shit. I don't. Maybe I'm using mine wrong. I don't think mine does anything like that. At least not in the native apps that come with it.
I'll show you
But
on
the
the
other
app.
thing is like yours is definitely geared towards the fitness world and so being outdoors, simply put, and some in the gym. I think it sounds like it does a great job. The one that I have is more social. It tells the time. They all
Yeah.
tell the time, but it's got all the connectivity portions of it. Oh, and by the way, we also do some health stuff. It blends too much together, but it doesn't focus well enough on one thing. And I'm getting to the point where I don't want to be connected to anybody, as
Well,
we make a podcast, but I don't want any of that update. I don't want to be connected. It has been nice. I will say that the one thing I do like about mine, this is the first one I just recently got it, like last summer. It's connected. It has a SIM card in it, so I don't need to bring my phone or anything. And I do shut down. Like I'll put like an what do you call that? Like a focus or a do not disturb on.
Yep.
But I can still, if I get in a bind or I fall and break my leg somewhere, something like that, like in case of emergency thing, I have that feature. I mean, I'm not sure if it pays off, but that is nice to have.
This
Peace of mind, rather.
and I know you still want to talk about the diet and stuff and food intake,
Mm-hmm.
but mental wellness is huge. Fitness plays a part in mental wellness. And one thing I've realized with wearing, I've never worn a watch until I got this watch. I was never a watch guy, but this watch will connect, read text messages and all that, but I shut that off.
Yeah, I wish I do it every once in a while, and I just wish I didn't have that.
The only thing I kept on here is phone calls. So
Okay.
if I got my bunkers on and my wife's calling or whoever's my calling, I can see who's calling me without trying to fish for my phone. But one of the benefits that I didn't know what was going to happen was my clock that I carried for years was my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wanted to check the time, I would take my phone out, look at the time. Oh, my phone's in my hand now. Let me open it up. Now let me get on the stupid whatever socials. And then I'm sucked into social media for however many minutes. Now I don't have to take my phone out to check the time.
Right.
I just go, oh, the time's this time. And then my phone stays in my pocket. And I've realized because I'm wearing a watch now, my screen time on my phone has gone significantly down.
Yeah.
Which I think mental health with, or just productivity, because I'm not sucked into social media. I wasn't looking for that, but it was just kind of organically happened. So I thought that was kind of cool.
And there's some pros and cons to it. So the other thing that I'm enjoying about this one, and I think yours can do it too, you just have to, is like music or podcasts. With all of the technology that's out there now, we've learned to adapt to multitasking. I mean, people that could multitask in the past, that was like, man, you have something about you and your genetics people need to study. Now everybody can multitask all the time. When you drive, you can listen to podcasts while the map is doing its navigation, and you can plug things on and you can talk to your phone and do this all hands free. You're supposed to do them all hands free, but now to the point where if I'm going on a hike with the dogs or run, I don't need to carry my phone, but my watch still has the capability that if I want to go to music, I can listen to music. Or if I want to listen to a podcast and then text somebody at the same time, hey, I'm listening to this. You got to check this out. Like I can still multitask. And I think it's getting to the point where it's spinning out of control. So it's almost like too much. And now I'm, like I said, I'm paring down on a lot of things to get my own mental capacity back. Like I'm too accessible, or I have too much access to everything else and I need to focus on what I'm doing in the moment. I think that's what's bothering me. So I'm almost like, I just want to go back to my Timex watch, the $7 watch I had when I was 7 years old, which I just found. I do still have it. It needs a new battery. It tells me time and that's it. But it's kind of nice having some of those features. And I think something more along the lines of like what some of you guys at the station have, like more of a Garmin-esque would fit that bill.
Yeah.
But there's a price point,
Free was a nice price point for me.
Free is a very nice price point. So I'm going to have to find somebody that doesn't want theirs anymore.
So I know you wanted to hit on diet and food, right?
Yeah, I think that's the last thing I have on my list, at least unless you got something else. But, we just talked about a little bit of mental health, the physicality point, thresholds, which fall both in your physical threshold versus your mental threshold and how those two combine. But the old adage I've always heard it since I was a kid, abs are made in the kitchen, not the gym. And that's a very, very base level sentence right there. But if you cannot handle your diet, and by diet, it's not the fad thing, the Atkins, the whatever, I don't know how many are out there, the Slim Fast diet, all these Weight Watchers, all this other stuff, all those programs are great, but you have to have the mental fortitude to recognize what they're doing. They are reprogramming how you think about food. Diet is literally the intake of food or calories, energy. It doesn't mean what I'm going to be doing for the next 12 weeks or 2 weeks, and then I'm back on whatever I want to eat again. It's got to be a conditioning. And I remember for me, one of the things I did try it was, do you remember Advocare?
Yeah.
Oh man, I got hooked on that just for, it was like a 30-day try it type of thing. I can't remember how much I paid for it. I remember thinking, okay, I could really use this because I had to drop some pounds. I was getting up there and not in a healthy way. It kind of sucked at the beginning, but as they kept going, all I realized is I don't have to buy anything from this program. I just have to realize it's intake and output. Match it up or either be in a calorie deficit or a little bit over, depending on what you want to do. And that program got me on this track. It was not my be all end all, but it got me thinking healthier. And then from there, I started doing all this other, bro science research and all this other stuff, reading books, reading labels, how to read labels on a basic level, nothing too crazy. But that diet, and I still follow a lot of that, meat and vegetables, some starches, but not a lot. I don't eat junk. I haven't had pop and, or soda. It depends on which side of the country you're from. I haven't had any garbage like that in 20 years. I can still do better in my diet, sure, but I just don't intake garbage and I don't crave it. I don't crave sugar what I do crave is a freaking ribeye steak all the time. And that's expensive, but I'd rather have that than craving Doritos or some sort of sugar junk. I don't know. What's your take on it? What have you learned? Is there anything, what do you got on that?
So I would say, you and I know just based off of, how long we've been talking to each other about this stuff. I try to start the day with 20 ounces of water. Wake up, boom, 20 ounces of water. And then if I'm working out in the morning before work, I'll work out on an empty stomach besides the water. I think that's a good way of working out. Just from listening to other professionals talk about it, because you're burning you're using the stored energy that's in your body because you haven't put any calories in you yet. There are days where, getting the kids on the bus or whatever, if My first meal of the day, and this is probably going back 3 years now. My first meal of the day is always a protein shake. That's it. Someday, when you work at the firehouse, when I have meals with the guys, our firehouse, our firehouse is not a big breakfast firehouse. It's not. We never have a huge sit down breakfast. Every once in a while, my group will do one. Guys want to bring in stuff, and we'll have a big breakfast. But the biggest thing guys got to learn to do. When I say guys, girls, people on a job, is portion control. Firehouse cooking is some of the best cooking there is. But when Nick makes his biscuits and gravy, you know, you don't need to go in for your third, fourth biscuit and 7 helpings of the sausage gravy. Cutting, complex carbs are good. Everybody knows that. Simple carbs like the sugars and everything else, bad. This is all should be common sense to this point with everybody right now. I would say my biggest, I don't know if it's an advantage, but my wife is like a stickler for reading labels. She's one of the cleanest eaters I know. She knows about what dirty fruits are, the organic chicken, this pasture raised eggs. So it's not a problem at home. It's a problem at the firehouse. $11 tacos. Come on, they're just tacos. I always spend $11 on tacos, but it's because you buy, the ground. You buy this ground beef. Some guys do a better job of cooking healthier at the firehouse. Some other groups. Some days you're just not going to get that healthy meal, and you need to stop and get whatever from whatever place you're going to get food from. We're lucky that we have the grocery stores we have in our district that have pretty decent healthy options. The other thing we do at our firehouse is we buy the bulk protein. It's not the best protein for you, but it's better than going in and getting a late night slice of pizza from the joint next door or getting a garbage plate.
Which is why we started buying that.
Right. Yeah, my wife read the label on that protein package. She goes, "Why are you drinking this?" I'm like, well, it's
all right. Well, we'll switch it. I've heard. I keep getting this story. We're switching it.
Yeah, but where are you gonna buy that much that protein powder for that price?
I don't know.
I mean, the Jocko protein that you and I use, I think it's probably the best out there, but it's expensive for 2.5 pound bag?
Is that? I thought that was a 5 pound. I can't remember. The one that was sitting here that we blew through, man, that did not last long. But it's so damn good.
Yeah.
But I'd still rather pay the extra money, have a decent snack sitting here. You said we have these markets in town, and yeah, they're a little distance away. But if it's one person that wants something, we got to go as a group. Not everybody wants to go as a group or late night snack. Everybody goes across the street to the bodega, and I love the guys that work there. They're funny as shit, but they don't have good options.
And I think that's the biggest. You got to learn to say no to some things. Yeah. I love ice cream. My brother owns an ice cream shop. You know how hard it is for me to take my kids to get ice cream and not get ice cream? And I don't do it because, one, it destroys me. But it tastes so freaking good. The chocolate shake. I don't, the instant gratification of that chocolate shake is not worth the however many 1,200 calories of ice cream that I'm sucking down in 5 seconds. Now I'm thinking, like I said, go back to the calorie counter on the watch. All right, I did 3,000, but I just added 1,200 to my normal diet. And it's like, now I'm not in that calorie deficit anymore, or that calorie at night, if I'm just maintaining, now I'm over my calories for that day. And I'm not a huge macro tracker. I kind of keep it in my head, just like I don't journal. But I got a pretty close idea of how much calories I'm taking in a day, because protein shake is only so many calories. A lunch is usually like tuna fish or chicken, salad with tuna fish or chicken over salad or rice or quinoa. And then dinner is whatever my wife cooks or whatever she asks me to cook or whatever I cook that night. She usually does the cooking, and she's a phenomenal cook. The one thing I have done, and it sucks because I love milk, is I've tried to cut dairy out. And I noticed
Completely?
I try to.
Okay.
String cheese sticks, they buy them for the kids. But man, after, mowing the lawn or doing whatever I'm doing for the day, and then just get in the fridge and it's an easy snack. The string cheese. That, and I'm supporting our battalion chief that owns a dairy farm. But what I noticed, and it was almost instantaneous for weight loss, whatever you want to say that is. It was like weird. I used to just use almond milk for my protein shakes, and we were out of almond milk at the house, and I refused to go buy some for the firehouse because they don't carry it at the bodega across the street. So I wasn't gonna have my guys take me to the store to go grab almond milk. So I just started doing protein shakes with just water, and
that's so tough.
but I got used to it, and now I've just done protein shakes with water. It's probably going on 6 months, but I dropped 5 pounds in a matter of weeks. And the only thing I changed was cutting out the extra calories of the almond milk. And at the firehouse, if we didn't have almond milk, it was chocolate milk or whatever milk was in there. But just cutting the milk out of the protein shake, it was 5 pounds. Like, I wasn't even trying. I didn't even know what was going on. Like, I stepped on the scale and I was down 5 pounds. And I didn't change anything except for
didn't mean to.
It was just a laziness for not getting almond milk and saving some money not buying almond milk. But, that was another thing. It was just kind of a fringe benefit of doing that. I've been starting to bring in my own protein. I'll still use the protein that we buy at the firehouse, but the Jocko protein has that blend, so it has the casein in it, which is good for nighttime.
It's great at night.
Yeah. So the Jocko has three different casein, whey, and isolate, I think it is.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the third. Is it an isolate? I know there's whey and casein.
Yeah, but the casein's, that's why it's a time release protein, and that's why it's great at night. So my wife, she's like, you shouldn't do more than one protein shake a day. Well, I'm doing 2, one in the morning and one right before bed. I noticed I started losing weight doing that as well because I'm not waking up hungry, and I wasn't eating junk or whatever is left over in the fridge the next day. So just another, it's probably more bro science than it is actual science. There's probably some science involved with it, but it's probably more leaning towards a bro science on that one.
I'm the other way. Like I cannot wait to get up and eat breakfast. I absolutely love breakfast, and it's always the same damn thing every day. It's got it's usually 4 to 6 eggs, and and then a mix of a slew of other things. Rarely bacon, but it's usually based around the eggs, avocado, whatever, but, and then a bunch of fruit. What's tough with the protein shakes is that, they're super good and everything. And you get on these and you have 2 a day, maybe you have 3, right? So that's, what is that? 25 grams a shake usually? So between 20 and 25 is usually your standards.
Yeah. The powder is about 22, 25, depending on the size of the scoop you're putting in.
So you're between
ready to drinks 60 are 30.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah, the ready to drinks are more.
They also cost more.
Yeah.
But so right there, just inside of a day, you're 60 to 75 grams of protein, and I think that's on at least that's on the forefront of my mind when I'm looking at things. I try to lower sodium, no to low sugar, unless it's something that can't be helped. Like milk's a good one. There's the natural sugars that are in milk, but it's not like they pour a ton, like soda has or pop. It's not like they dump a ton of corn syrup or other sugars into it. So as you're counting this up and you're trying to go to your goal, let's just say it's 1 gram per pound that you weigh. Okay, you're you're getting up there. You start doing those other stuff. So you have chicken, and maybe you have steak. Maybe you have, your tuna fish is a good one, or just regular tuna for dinner. Maybe, you start getting there, and you got your protein intake. But what about all the other stuff? You need the minerals and everything else. I don't know. I get out of whack with that stuff. I get so loaded up with worrying about the protein that there's been weeks where I'll go where I completely forget about all the other shit that I need. Not just fat. You do need a little bit of fat and all the other stuff, but it's like, okay, so it's like, oh, I'll just supplement with some vitamins. So now what am I on? I'm on the vitamin and chicken diet. So now I got to make sure I get, got to get 2 vegetables in for, each meal or whatever, some fruits, try and find supplement. Before you know it, you've just got a mound of food that you got to eat in a day. Now somewhere you got to create a balance.
So protein, the right protein will have a lot of that good stuff in it. But the one thing guys should know, how many grams per protein you should be taking in. There's a lot of different numbers out there. 75% of, and we're talking how many grams. Whatever scale of protein however, the protein intake is based off the desired weight you want to be. So I'm 207.
Okay.
I think I was up to 213 after vacation. I think I'm back down to 207. But I want to get to I want to get to 200 pounds. So I shouldn't be taking in 210 grams of protein. I should be taking in 200 grams of protein. That simplified label reader that should be posted in the firehouses.
That one that we sent back and forth the other day.
Yeah. I think that should be blown up and posted in the kitchen for the guys. Because I
don't remember. Actually, I think it was Mike that sent me that. Somebody sent me that one.
But there's another thing I read, and we're just talking about diet and just in the United States diet. God bless my wife for keeping me on track with eating the stuff that we should be eating. Red meat has been on the decline for consumption in the United States over the past however many years. And just look at the population in the United States. You can tell who is eating red meat, and you can tell who's eating. When I'm not talking McDonald's hamburgers. I'm talking like a ribeye steak or a strip steak, or a good pork chop. Eating red meat, you can tell who's eating properly in the United States. And there is the statistic. Have you ever heard the quote? You can lie 100% of the time with statistics.
Yeah.
So I haven't verified it, but just based off of observations I've had of, especially because of our job and the run-ins we get to go on our EMS calls, and you see how people live, and you see the physical state that people are in and their dietary habits. And then you look at other countries, and you're more of a world traveler than I am. It was some European country that says consumes this much red meat, and they have the lowest BMI in the world. And then I know France was the other one. France is the highest consumption of saturated fats in the world, and they have the lowest cardiac related health issues, because saturated fats are not the issue. Saturated fats are actually good for you. It's all the other stuff. It's the processed food in the United States that is killing us. And our job, just based on, if you work at a busy firehouse and you're running your ass off, you might have to get the slice of pizza. And that's all processed. There's not one thing on that slice of pizza that's not processed, I guarantee, even down to the tomato sauce. And that's one nice thing. My probies that's on our group, not going to get into why or what, but he has to eat clean. And I'm hoping it started because he's kind of taken over the cooking. And I'm hoping that kind of pumps a little epi into our firehouse meals for how clean we're going to eat with him around, just because he has to.
Yeah.
But eating clean is, if you're not in the protein shakes, there's tuna fish, sardines. I mean, I wouldn't say the can of chicken in a pinch, but that's processed.
I keep it on the shelf. Just
Yeah, it's like an
yeah, it's for my
emergency.
super fast. Because I'd rather go to that than get something across the street. At the bodega.
But chicken breast. I was reading chicken breast and like turkey breast have more protein in it than steak. The problem is chickens are so pumped up with shit. So if you're gonna buy chicken, you're worried about that. Spend a little bit extra money, buy the organic chicken. Same thing with eggs, pasture raised, free range, yeah, not cageless. There's a difference. Pasture raised, I think it's pasture raised eggs. Way better for you. I think one of the nice things in our firehouse, how many guys have chickens at have their own chickens now. So it seems like our firehouse is just
Yeah.
loaded with eggs. And now one guy in my group has got ducks, so now I got duck eggs. There's options out there. Just take some work.
Yeah, and you don't like to start. It doesn't have to be some extreme change. There's these small little things that you can use. Like a good one that I know I started off with at the beginning was did I earn it today? And that's kind of, you could go, if you're going to cut one thing out, let's say you always have cake at the after dinner, all right, or some sort of dessert. Did I earn it today? Start small, right? It's just cake. We're not talking about the rest of your diet. We're not overhauling it in a 24-hour period. Did I earn that cake today? Did I put enough work in? If the answer is no, well, then it's quite simply, you don't get the cake. That's something small. And if you can manage to do that for a couple weeks, no, I didn't deserve the dessert. Okay, that's a start. That's actually a grand start. And then you start working in the small things. Do I need the butter on my toast versus, I don't know, whatever the hell else, everybody else. I don't use butter that often. Like I get a stick of Kerrygold will last me fucking months, because I don't use it. But I notice a lot of guys around here will, at the firehouse will use
Country Crock.
Well, that too, but butter in the pan to cook their eggs or to cook their food, and it's just the butter it's a ton of it being used versus, okay, switch it out to an olive oil, an avocado oil. Not that they're significant. I mean, they're quite better than butter, but switch it out with something. Not vegetable oil, not canola oil. Go with something a little bit more sturdy.
The other thing,
that's a big step.
The other thing that's really easy to do, I'm going to say intermittent fasting.
That's actually next on my list.
And I'm not even talking doing the intermittent fasting that I do, which is sometimes I go to the extreme. But you can simplify intermittent fasting by just stop eating at, like, we'll say 8 o'clock at night. No food consumption after 8 o'clock at night. And then when you wake up, you don't eat until 8 o'clock in the morning. That's a 12-hour fast.
Even though you're sleeping.
It doesn't matter. You're sleeping. You're fasting for 12 hours. And you could, after a while, you might be able to stretch it out. You could stop eating at 7 at night and stretch out, not have your first meal until 10 o'clock in the morning. Now you're up to a 15-hour fast. And intermittent fasting is great. It resets your digestive system. One, when you break your fast, it makes your food taste so much better.
Oh God, yes, it does.
But what I've noticed, I'll do an intermittent. It's not an intermittent fast. I'll do a fast, and I'll do it just kind of to reset. Especially,
how long is this?
My longest fast.
Yeah.
My longest fast was 50 hours.
50 hours? That's not a fast. That's a hunger strike.
And if you're going to fast, you got to mentally prepare yourself for it. My advice, if you're going to do a long fast, don't start it in the morning. Start it, have your first meal, or I should say, have your last meal as like dinner, like an early dinner, 4:30, 5 o'clock. That's early in some of our firehouses. That's on time in my house. So if you start your fast at 5 o'clock in the evening, you've already hit 12 hours at 5 in the morning. You're going to struggle from about 1 o'clock until about 5 o'clock in the evening. It's a struggle. So you find something to do, find some housework to do, go for a run, get your mind off of the hunger pain that you think, and it's all mental. You think you're hungry, but you're not. Drink some water, black coffee, and then once you get over that hump that first day, the hunger pains go away. And then day 2, you feel like you could go another 3 days. It really, at least in my experience.
Are you working out in this time frame, or are you changing your workout at all? Reducing? Nope. No, you're still.
Yep.
Pounding it out. Is it tougher?
I don't think so.
No, you don't feel like you have a lack of energy or anything?
No. Actually, you start to feel like, I think like the physiological of it, because you go into ketosis and all this other stuff, you start going, your body starts going and burning reserves, and that's when it starts burning the fat, and it's burning the stored fat in yourself. What you have to worry about, and I've seen this happen, this was, I didn't experience rhabdo. I saw rhabdo before rhabdo was a thing, I guess, back in my wrestling days when guys were cutting weight. That's a one thing you gotta keep an eye on is the rhabdomyolysis, or I think is that right? Just rhabdo. That's when instead of your body breaking down fat and using it for energy, your body will start to break down muscle and use that for energy. You don't want that to happen. Now, if you're famine resistant like I am, you have enough stored fat to go on a decent amount of fast. And Joe Rogan did what, a 72-hour, I think it was,
something like that. Yeah. How do you keep your body from going into some sort of catabolic state though, where it's breaking down muscle versus, or a protein based, musculature?
You still need water, and you still need to get some sort of, you need electrolytes. The problem is that if you drink a Gatorade's going to break your fast.
Right.
So you need
sugar mostly.
Because of the sugar, yeah. So you need a 0-calorie drink with that's going to keep you hydrated. That's part of what's going to battle the rhabdo. And that's why when my teammate, when he was cutting weight, went into rhabdo, was because he was cutting weight, so he wasn't drinking water. He was working out like a maniac, and instead of breaking down the zero fat that he had, it was his body went, okay, I need some sort of energy. The only thing I can break down now is muscle, and that's what was going on. I mean, obviously, we're not physicians here, so consult your doctor with anything you're going to do, or just do pro science. But intermittent fasting I think it's a good catalyst to start off a good diet. It just, for me, it resets. It's like a good reset button.
Yeah, I did it actually during the Spring Academy. I did it for 2 weeks. I kind of dove in head first to try it out. My window for eating. I wasn't a 24 or anything like that. It was 2 weeks straight. So 14 days. My window to eat was 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. So it was a 20-hour fast every day. And that was wild. That was my first experience with it. I've heard other people do it, and I'm like, I'm just going to try this instead of doing like a 12-hour, 12 on, 12 off. Didn't really have the craving. The first day, it was like, like I just said, I get up, I'm hungry for breakfast, but the hard part was avoiding sugars. That did have a huge effect. Like simple sugars. I don't eat or drink a lot of sugar as it is, but man, I wanted something. So you want to grab, like, energy drinks is a tough one. Even if it's zero sugar, there's some other sweetener in there.
Yeah.
That can still offset that balance. So everybody's like, oh, well, this has zero sugar in it. Well, just because it's labeled zero sugar, it's a very specific sugar that they're referencing. That doesn't mean that there could be a different form of a sugar. It's just not the same sugar.
So I think a 36-hour fast is pretty easy to do, especially if you start it at night. So if you, let's say if your last meal, last bite of food you have is 7 at night. By 7
Okay.
in the morning, that's 12 hours. By 7 at night, that's another 24 hours. You go to bed again. You
Yeah.
wake up at 7 in the morning, that's 36 hours.
So
Boom.
really, you only waited out the 12-hour day
Yeah.
shift that you
That's
were, awake.
and like I said, the hardest part is going to be from 12 in the afternoon to about 5 in the afternoon. And I give my wife a warning when I'm going to do a fast, because then she's got to give the kids a warning to, hey, let's not be around daddy from
Oh, do you get
this.
grumpy?
Uh, I get a little that during that time frame. It's the hangry Lou comes out.
Focus on something, I think, really helps. The big thing is just keep working out, which
Yeah,
almost sounds like, okay, I got no energy in the tanks. I'm going to do something that burns more energy. How do I keep that going? It does take your mind off it. House chores is not another thing to just keep powering through.
right.
Whether I'm not saying go rebuild the deck, but small things, and just keep adding it onto your to-do list. Make a
Right.
to-do list and choose to do it during that time frame. You mentioned the doctor. That's the last thing I had on the list. I mean, I always had a doctor growing up, pediatrician. Then when I started becoming the age of being an adult, I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but started seeing a doctor, and then for years I didn't. And only relatively recent, the last 5 years, I started seeing a doctor at least once a year. But then I started getting the blood check just to see where everything is. You definitely should maintain that. I think anybody in our profession should at least get a baseline, even if they think they're healthy. I can't choose an age. I don't know what clinically you should be going to a doctor, what age that should be at, but it is beneficial to know where your baseline is. If anything, at least for your cholesterol. Know that your things are out of whack, or you got some work to do, or that you're fine, but you should have that base level. And the reason I say, at least in our profession, as well as some other ones, but with all the different cancerous substances that were around and everything, you should know what your base is. So the moment something seems off, you can pinpoint it and get an early jump on it. Now that's a different side of the health, but as far as food, it'll tell you what you need, what you're deficient on right away. Don't wait till you're 45 and you're like, oh, I'm getting the age where I should start seeing a doctor. Well, you got no baseline before that. So how does the doctor know that something's off?
Right. I think our department does a pretty good job with our. I mean, I'm not saying that they're the best physicals, but the blood panel that they get us, it's a pretty comprehensive blood panel.
Yeah. If they send it to you. I've had
they
quite a few
mine,
times I had to call them and be like, hey, I never got this. Oh, yeah, we'll send it out now.
But you got to be. I think cholesterol's got a bad rap, and there's a backstory why cholesterol got a bad rap. It's like some lobbyist thing or something like that. But your brain needs cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
It functions off of cholesterol. It's it's the LDLs and the triglycerides you got to watch, but the HDL cholesterol is good cholesterol. You need that stuff for your brain to function properly.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's all stuff a doctor will tell you. It's another thing. I have a doctor. He's been my doctor since I stopped going to my pediatrician. But I think it's with, what do they call medicine these days? Not modern medicine, but I just feel like there's a problem, because I see it with my parents. It's the same doctor my parents go to. You go to the doctor. Hey, this is what's going on. We're going to give you we're going to throw this pill at you.
Well, yeah, I don't want any of that.
Right. Well, something led to this happening. So why don't we figure out what led to this happening and mitigate that problem, instead of just throwing a pill at this problem and calling it a day? Obviously, there's some things that needs medication that you can do whatever you want. You're going to need medication, like hypothyroidism.
Okay.
You need you're going to blood work's going to show that somebody might be feeling very lethargic for whatever reason, and nothing changes. You haven't changed anything. You're lethargic. Maybe you're gaining weight, so you've changed your diet up. You're exercising. You're still gaining weight or whatever. You go to the doctor. They test you. Oh, you have hypothyroidism. There's nothing you can do to change that your thyroid to function better. That is something that needs medication. Conversely, someone's got is type 2 diabetes. You can change your type 2 diabetes without medication. But there's people that refuse to do it. And then they just go take the pills, and then they live their life being a type 2 diabetic, taking however many prescription pills they take.
But it takes work.
Yeah, right.
And it goes back to that threshold. Oh, that's too much work. I can't do it. There, you gotta push past. Not everybody can self-motivate.
Right. Well, I could have just used type 1 diabetes versus type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, you can't do anything about. You're born with it. Type 2 diabetes, you put yourself in that position by not exercising, by eating junk, and not living a healthy lifestyle. So instead of changing your lifestyle, we're just going to throw a pill at it and call that a solution. And then your health just keeps declining because you haven't changed your lifestyle.
Yeah. And let's be clear, we're not shaming anybody who does have it. It's just we want to see you get healthier.
Right. Absolutely.
So use that as another tool as a wake-up call. Hey, there is something you can do. You're not completely helpless. You don't need to always be on the medication. If you have something like type 2, you might need something to balance for a while, but there are ways to move past this stuff.
You might need the medication. All right, boom, it snuck up on me. Maybe you didn't get the checkup that your physical, that your yearly physical. All of a sudden, boom, I am a type 2 diabetic now. Well, I need to be on the medication now to regulate my glucose levels. Well, I'm going to take the medication to regulate myself, but at the same time, I'm going to start changing my diet up. I'm going to start exercising properly. And then you know what? Your goal should be to get off that medication if you're a type 2 diabetic. That's my personal opinion.
Right. It's there's quite a few other things out there too that it'll never happen to me, is the great saying. That won't happen to me. That'll happen to somebody else. It won't happen to me. Until it does, then it's kind of it. You start to get in that slump of it's too late. I'm too far gone. I'm never gonna get out. You know what I mean? And you just dig yourself deeper.
Yeah.
Same thing. Like smoking is a good one. Which it seems like smoking's coming back a little bit. I'm seeing more people smoke all of a sudden. I don't know if that's stressing the world or what, but that's just cut it. You got to cut it. Yeah. But it also helps to surround yourself with people that like-minded in a positive way. Not like-minded where, hey, I'm just going to hang out with all the smokers, because they're like-minded. You got to get people, the more you surround yourself with those people that are going to motivate you, the better. And then eventually it'll kick in. You'll start motivating yourself as well.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that pretty much sums up this whole thing is we got to get fit. We don't have standards. It's up to us to set the standards. It's up to you to set your own standard, if anything. And if you are having trouble getting there, start getting a group together. You can take a class, you can join a gym, you can go do jujitsu or karate. There's a million things out there. We got one of the guys we work with. Him and his uncle started mountain biking, and now there's a group of people, and one thing, it just keeps catching on, and that's their main source of exercise. It doesn't take much. It is a little work, but that's the best bit. There's a payoff. All the good things aren't free in life. You got to work for them.
Longevity.
Well, with that, we want to see everybody get healthy. See a doctor. Start there. Get a baseline. See what they recommend to start if you're severely out of shape. See what they recommend to start getting in shape. Maybe it's a dietitian that you need. Join a gym. Go to the Globo Gym. Go to the $5 gym. Just do something. Or, hey, go for a walk. Simple as that. Grab a pedometer. The little $5 one, $6 thing at the supermarket. Throw that on your hip and just keep challenging yourself every day. If you can't do that, find a pen and paper. We mentioned jotting these things down, and these are your little, you don't necessarily, it's nice to set goals, but if you can see what you did yesterday, just try to beat that, and every day make it a game.
Gamify
I have to beat that. Yeah. And keep switching it up. Keep it guessing. Anything else?
I think we're good. Just going to apologize if this sounds choppy if anybody has made it to this long.
This one was a tough one to get through. Yeah. We had a lot of technical errors, short breaks, family emergencies. We had all sorts of stuff going on. But please reach out if you guys have questions. Well, there's a lot of grant funds out there. If you guys are looking for Firehouse gym equipment, it does not take much. You don't need to go out buy $1 million worth of equipment. Super simple. Challenge each other. Sign up for these challenges or like stair climbs, anything. If you need to reach out to us, it's firefrom2windows@gmail.com. That's where you can email at us. The other thing you can use is hit us up on the Instagram. That's firefrom2windows.
And
anything else?
Subscribe to the podcast, I guess.
Yeah, keep listening. We want your input. A lot of this is actually peer driven. So the more you guys reach out, the more stuff we can keep dwelling on, keep chatting and wasting your time. All right. We want to make sure everybody out there is sharing conversation, and most importantly, be safe.